Howdy! Ho ho, my good humans, how are thy doing? This unnecessary rambling. I am Brandon Sylvia, joined by the homie Loon. How you doing?
Yeah, good, good, good. How's everyone else?
Doing good, man. Jeffrey in the building for some rankings. You ready to rank some things, my friend?
I'm excited. Thank you for having me. I haven't done this with you guys before. So yeah, it'll be fun. It was fun to think about and like write down the games I played this month because it's pretty easy as the year goes on to forget about those things. I don't know if you guys can attest to that, but trying to look back on what you played isn't always easy. So this is cool.
Yeah, absolutely. If it wasn't for these are like a good encapsulation just to remind you, like, oh, hey, yeah, I did play that thing. I totally forgot about that thing when going back to look at the end of the year and like, how did I feel about this versus that? And yeah, so these are always fun. So we
Yeah.
got our games played for the month of January. And I guess we'll just kind of go one by one. I got them all kind of slotted in. Um, where my games I have there, and then Loon, and then Jeffrey. So we'll just kind of pluck them out one by one. I was gonna throw in a didn't finish tier, but we'll just we'll run through it and we can kind of explain our ranking for something, even if we didn't finish it, regardless. So
Cool.
I guess I'm gonna kick it to you guys first. Jeffrey, since you are the newcomer to the ramble and the rank, how about you hit it off with a game you want to throw on this tier list first?
Sure. Yeah, I'll be pretty clear up front with like the games because these aren't all games that I finished. I mean, I generally to finish a whole game unless it's a very short game, it doesn't usually happen for me in a month. I usually have to spread it out over the course of a few months, so I'll be clear about that, but it'll just be a ranking based on where I'm at. So, let's start with I'll just start with the first one on there, Fear 3. So, Fear 3 is definitely the black sheep of the Fear games for sure. It's definitely not the most loved. For anyone that knows, the first Fear, as well as Fear 2 Project Origin, really lean into that first person shooter horror action, especially with Alma Wade. She's just this creepy psychic ghost girl thing, and her like children, I guess, Paxton Fettle, I guess. I don't know. It's a very confusing lore, but the first two Fear games are excellent. They're really creepy. They're high on action, but they have really great AI. They have good world building, good set design, incredible scares left, right, and center. So I really like the first two games a lot. However, Fear 3, it's interesting because it's fine. I dove back into it because I wanted to see after a few years if it holds up compared to the first two. Does it feel just like a regular first person shooter? I've actually never finished this game. I've tried probably 4 or 5 times to finish Fear 3, but I just never have because I eventually just get bored. This just leans a little too heavy into the action and kind of does away with a lot of the fear, quote unquote, aspects. It is fun if you take it for what it is, but I've only gone through maybe the first couple hours again. So personally, I'd put this maybe in like C tier. You know, it's fun for what it is, but it's nowhere near the first two games. Although they do have some cool like objectives and achievements and things that you can get for just like killing so many dudes or like things like that that help you level up, but nowhere near the first two games. So yeah, I don't know if either of you have played this, but
I haven't. I've played the first one. I still got to play two and three. It is kind of wild though how like Dead Space 1 and 2, beloved. Parasite Eve 1 and 2, beloved. Parasite Eve 3, not so beloved. Dead Space 3, not so beloved. And then the same is kind of true with Fear. The survival horror trilogies kind of taper off around the third for a lot of them. Interesting.
yeah.
I think that's because with you said about Dead Space 3, I can't speak for what did you say, Parasite Eve, and what was the other one?
Parasite Eve, Dead Space 3.
Okay, so Parasite Eve I can't speak on, but for Fear 3 and Dead Space 3, they suffer the same things because they shoehorned in co-op mechanics.
Mm,
That was what made the game suffer, is that Fear 3 was you could play the entire campaign in co-op. So they had to make the game be balanced around that. Even when
Yeah.
you're in single player, you're still playing that single section, as the single player, and the same with like Dead Space 3.
Leaning a little
So
bit more into the action for all
yeah,
three.
and
Yeah.
trying to make that trying to it was just the product of the time, whenever it was like 2013, 2012 and stuff like that, where they were trying to chase them trends because Gears of War was doing so well.
yeah.
Right.
But yeah,
Even
I've
Resident
I've
Evil 3.
finished.
It's like kind of goes
Yeah,
over the top
Yeah.
action. Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, it's still a pretty fun first person shooter, but it's just
Mm.
if you look at it in terms of the first two games, which were really good horror games, on
Yep.
top of being good shooters, it just doesn't compare. But there's still some fun to there if you can get it for, $5-10. There's still a lot of fun. It's just not the same as. That's a good point, though, Loon. I didn't think about the co-op aspect, so that makes sense.
Yeah, that's what made the game really suffer. Did you not play Fear Files out of curiosity?
I did back in the day on the 360, but I have no recollection of it. So what was that? I thought, was it just like DLC? I don't even know what Fear Files was. I can't remember.
It's a baffling continuity because you had Fear 1, which is considered canon, and then Fear Files was two like expansion packs that they sold separately as like a standalone thing that continued the story after Fear, and then they retconned them. And that's why they're kind of weird. And then Fear 2 came in, and then it's that's what I mean. It's just a mess because, like as you said, like Fear 3's story is a mess as well.
Yeah.
Compared to the other two, it's just like, yeah, I don't know what you guys were doing over there back then.
It was a different developer too, I believe. The first two, right? So, and then the third one was a different developer, which doesn't always mean it's going to spell disaster, of course. But anyway,
Little Nightmares 1 and 2, and then now people are kind of iffy about the third one switching to a new developer. Three.
Oh no, I don't think
horror space.
I don't think Fear 3 was a different developer.
No, it was.
Was it?
It was Day One Studios, and the first two were Monolith.
Oh,
I'm like fairly confident with that.
I know the reason that they retconned Fear Files was because that was a different developer. I know that.
Okay, I'm pretty sure, but if I'm wrong, someone will let us know. Absolutely, but so yeah, Fear 3. But yeah, so whoever wants to go next, that's what I got.
Loon, you want to hit one off the top real quick? I'm gonna pretty rapidly go through mine, except for one here. So
okay,
yeah.
I'll do the same for most of mine too. So, except for that, apparently.
I'll stick around the kind of same vibe. The Darkness is what I'll start with.
Okay.
I went through and finished both Darkness games, and man, the Darkness one was like really rough in so many aspects, but it was keeping me engaged up until like the final like 3 hours. That's some of the worst level design and set pieces I've ever played in a game with how rough the shooting is. But this was what was it? Who was the developer of this?
We just
Digital Extremes did the sequel, but who did the first? It was the people who did Chronicles of Riddick.
Oh, well, it was. I mean, obviously, a lot of them moved on to Machine. Damn, the Darkness one.
I can't remember. Yeah.
One
because it's a cool
blank on it.
Yeah, I can't remember either.
I'm pulling it up.
It's a cool game though.
Starbreeze. Yep, Starbreeze.
Yep.
Oh, Starbreeze. Interesting.
So this was when, in my opinion, they still made like decent games because they're obviously making. I think they're basically a support studio now.
Yep.
Correct me if I'm wrong. They basically they just help with Payday with Overkill, and it's just like, man, how far you guys have fallen. Because like the Riddick game was incredible.
Yeah.
This was good in many aspects, but pretty flawed. And it's just like, I can't believe you lost like the sequel to somebody else. Like you had some cool, interesting ideas here because that was because I'll rank them both together. Like the Darkness one was much more gritty and dark in tone in allowing you to explore like New York and stuff and being really grungy. And then the Darkness 2 kind of because it's based on a comic book series. I don't know if you guys are aware. And that's kind of where like the Darkness 2 takes its inspiration from its like art style a little bit more because it's a little bit more stylized. I think I prefer the second game because it was just more fun to play, like gameplay wise. But I would throw Darkness 1 right next to Fear 3.
Okay.
With it being like that ending part just kind of ruined it. But the Darkness 2 B.
B for the Darkness 2.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. Dive into that a little bit. What about the Darkness 2 other than like the art style change? I know it was a little bit more over the top action out the gate. I never finished either game, but I played both of
them. It was just more pleasant to play. That's the thing, is that you know when you get to them like 2006, 2007 shooters and they just feel like you guys didn't. I know we kind of worked out like using analog sticks for aiming and stuff, but it was still that kind of rough transition phase with like console shooters, and they didn't have things worked out quite just yet. And it's just
Yeah.
them cleaning that up, the abilities, and just it didn't feel as punishing. That was like the big thing as well. Like with the Darkness one, where it had like snap-on aiming, because you couldn't aim down sight with guns, really.
Oh yeah, that's
You had
right.
like a technically he would like draw them up, but there was no aiming down sight. So you're basically hip firing the whole game.
Right, yeah.
So it's frustrating when you get to the end of the game and it's basically this spiral you're working your way up essentially. So they have the high ground and it's so hard to hit them, and you die in like 2-3 hits. And that was the difference with the Darkness 2. You had like an actual like progression system that you had control over, much more clean combat, much better set pieces, and yeah. Sad that it never continued because they built up a decent like
Yeah.
hook with the story as well.
That would
And
have been
they
a
just
cool
left
series
it.
to kind of to see, like Prototype, Infamous, The Darkness. Like they all kind of played in a interesting, somewhat dark anti-hero space.
Hmm.
Plus, Jackie Estacado as like the main character is pretty darn cool. I mean, just his like transition throughout the games because I finished
Mafia
both of them.
stuff and all that. That's sick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the mafia stuff, the supernatural stuff, and like with his girlfriend or whatever in the first game. And it's what's cool about these rankings because I actually argued the first one is a little better, but it's interesting how like our perspectives can shift depending on what we look at more. But there are cool games though. I wish we had more like that.
Yeah.
How long ago was it that you finished the Darkness one though?
I mean, it was back in the 360 era. I played them both
Yeah.
on 360, so I can't speak to them today, but they were
Yeah.
really fun back then. So
Because I think if I would have played it at like launch around that time, I probably would have edged it a little bit more. But going back now, it's like, man, this is so rough.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I remember that opening scene in the Darkness one was so cool in the car, and it's like this big cinematic shootout, and you had some control over what was going. Like, yeah, there's some cool stuff in those games, man. All right,
All right,
TLOU
Brandon.
Part 2, The Last of Us Part 2. I talked about it last month, finished it this month. Well, this is a replay. I've already finished it before back in the day, but it's The Last of Us 2 is tough. Some of the best gameplay for this genre of all time, going prone and just all the melee encounters, just how much better it feels to play elevates it. But man, that story drags. It is so, so bloated. By the time I finished this game, I was like, I had the same feeling I had the first time I played it, where I was like, I don't care about either of you at all. And it's such an unsatisfying conclusion to the game to me. I get the meaning, I get the messaging, I get all of that. But like, and I even understand the need to lay it out the way they did. I understand the decisions that were made. It's sometimes like making the correct decision doesn't necessarily lead to the best game, doesn't necessarily lead to the best final product. Because like for a movie, for a television show, to structure it this way, brilliant. You would be on the edge of your seat. But mechanically, it's like there's just not enough. It's so fun to play, don't get me wrong. But like it's still a video game, and it's like, why am I playing this for 20 hours? I don't want to play a game like this for even more than 20 hours, like 30 hours. But man, that sniper boss fight, wow, chef's kiss, so good, top tier boss fight, so damn hard. You're jumping and dodging and trying to, you're going prone just to get some safety for a moment so that you can avoid being taken down by that bastard. And then how it all leads up and you're tracking him, you got to flank him. Like there's moments in this game, the bloater fight in the hospital, there are moments, man, of like top tier gameplay, but it drags. It really, really drags. And as invested as I am or was in Ellie, by the end of it, I'm like, I really would like to not. I would like to just see totally different people from this point on. I know that would be hard to just leave Ellie behind for TLOU 3, but it's like, I've had enough, man. It's like exhausting to finish this thing. But once again, with the gameplay being as good as it is and some of those moments being so top notch, I'm going to go B tier.
So I'm curious, why did you end up replaying it then? If I know you've mentioned clearly the gameplay must be that good, but why did you replay it then if you already knew the story stuff wasn't going to resonate or the characters or what have you? Because that's what I've heard makes it so divisive is well, just the story aspects, the character moments, and et cetera.
Yeah.
So what kind of brought you to replay it then?
Well, it was a weird string of events. I played Indiana Jones and I was like, oh, I want to play Uncharted. So I played Uncharted 4 and I was like, oh, now I want to play Naughty Dog games. So I played TLOU 1 and then TLOU 2 back to back. And also I wondered if my opinion on The Last of Us 2 would change over the years because I played it during the pandemic and it was this
Mm.
ultra oppressive game in an ultra oppressive time period where we're literally locked inside. And so I'm like, okay, maybe I was just in a bad state of mind. And I don't really think that. I think I feel almost exactly the same, other than I can acknowledge how good the gameplay is. And also having the navigational markers for the PS5 version where it'll just tell you where to go, like Dead Space. And so it cuts
Oh,
off
that's great.
time. Yeah, it cuts off
Nice.
so much time when you're in the open world section. Um,
Nice.
yeah, so, but I still feel very, very similarly to how I felt initially. So that's kind of a B tier overall experience with like S tier gameplay.
Interesting.
How much of it do you think is based as well in how to word this
Mm.
without being extremely disrespectful?
I think I
How
know where you might be
miserable,
going with that. Yeah.
how miserable the story is as like a tone and stuff. What they're obviously setting out to achieve that,
Of
so
course.
hats off to you. And how long the game is, because I remember, I think we've spoken about this before. Like when I got a PS4 for the first time, like I was going through all of the Uncharted games, and something I noticed, and then moving on to like the first Last of Us game as well, their games got longer
Yeah,
and longer every single time, and I was like at the end of Uncharted 3, I'm like, okay, I'm kind of done with this now. Like when it got to the end, and then I booted up Uncharted 4, and I was like, oh, I had to go look it up because I was like, how much more is left of this game? Like you're just adding more and more and more, and it's kind of that thing of the way I envision it is if you have like an artist working on a painting, and then they take a step back, and instead of just being like, all right, that's good, Naughty Dog don't do that. They go
no.
back in and they go with a magnifying glass and then they tweak something and they perfect it and they perfect it and they stand back and they keep doing that, and that's why like their games get longer and longer and longer, and that's why like they're masterpieces artistically.
Mhm.
But what you're saying is like how long it takes to get through like The Last of Us Part 2. That's absurd.
Yeah.
That really is absurd.
Well, and it's
Huh.
like at the end of the day, it's a third person shooter.
Right.
I mean, imagine if Resident Evil 4 was 30 hours.
Oh
I don't
gosh.
want to
Yeah.
I don't want to play 30 hours of anything other than RPGs. And even then, at times I'm
Right.
like, why the hell is this 30 plus hours? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So it's like I yeah, I acknowledge 1000% the level of craftsmanship on this thing. It's masterful work. I even think that some of the back end stuff is so important to have it be fleshed out more. The relationship between Lev and Abby, and like you need that kind of more in-depth storytelling that takes time to build up over the course of a game. But it's like
Hmm.
maybe there's two games there. You know what I mean? Maybe there's 3 hours cut off of each character's path. It's like you can go in and think about all that shit till the cows come home. It was definite pacing issues, no doubt.
Interesting. It's a shame because everything you say about the gameplay makes me want to experience so much of this game, but I tried the like 1 or 2 hour trial that they put out on it. I fell off of it so fast. I so badly wanted to get into the combat and the action, but this is just personal, but the story and the characters could not have been more grating, irritating. And again, I'm not going to go into certain things here because probably won't be good for a lot of things, but I did not resonate with any of it. This felt so just, oof, nope, just a hard no, despite knowing how good the gameplay was going to be. So
Yeah,
it's a shame knowing how good it is, but not wanting to experience it because of story and characters, but it
right.
is what it is.
So yeah,
Yeah.
man, I'm gonna lock it in at the B tier. Back to you, Jeffrey, for your second game on the docket.
Yeah, I'll keep this short because I already did a video about it on the channel, the Thing Remastered. So I do need to give a preface for this, as I did in the video. Is I've never seen the Thing movie. That might be blasphemy as a horror fan. I just don't care about sci-fi. I've also never played the Thing game from PS2, Xbox, but this was a weird one because I rarely finish a game that I'm not having fun with. But this is only about a 4 or 5 hour game. But this remaster is rough. It is rough. Now, I can't speak for the original The Thing game, but I would hope a remaster would at least clean up some bugs and issues. But this is a brutal game. The amount of times I got soft locked, the amount of times my characters got stuck in the environments. The thing with The Thing is that like you control and have like a squad of like allies or whatever, and those could be like scientists or soldiers or whatever, engineers. The problem is they're so stupid. And again, I don't know what that's like in the first game, but in a remaster, they didn't clean any of that up to my knowledge. And so they're always getting stuck. They never follow you. They're always dying. And it was so cumbersome. I hated the whole squad management. It was so cumbersome. It was so irritating and so frustrating that I almost stopped this game probably almost a dozen times because I'm like, this isn't fun.
Yeah.
But what kept the game going for me was just the atmosphere.
Right.
Just the atmosphere, like that Antarctic, creepy, snowy, cold night, derelict Antarctic base and feel, even with the jank, was so enticing.
And it's
even
so
the story,
rare.
and it's so rare, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. There's not really many games that go there. So anyway, it just for me it wasn't a fun game, but the ambiance and like the world and even the story to a point was really compelling that it made me want to push through. To my opinion, the pretty garbage gameplay. Again, at least from my perspective, never played the first. So for me, it's definitely a C tier game. But again, take that with a grain of salt because I've never watched the movie or played the original. But this was a rough remaster. It was not well handled by Night Dive Studios. So
It's so funny that would be a point of contention with people of like, yeah, I never played the original. I never watched the movies. It's like, isn't that the point of different forms of, entertainment? Like you would rather play a game of something to maybe get you in to the movie,
right.
to maybe see the original, to go back. Like I never watched any of the Harry Potter stuff. I never read any of the books. I love Hogwarts Legacy as my first experience with Harry Potter, like really diving in. And now I'm like, oh, I'd like to go back and check some of that stuff out. Like that's kind of the purpose of multimedia is to get people into the other stuff as well. So like, I don't know. It's weird to me to for people to be like, well, if you didn't play the original, well, if you didn't watch the movie, then it's like it's a video game. Like it's a totally different entertainment form. So yeah, where would you rank it though, Jeffrey?
Well, I said I'll put it in C. And with the original coming out again back in 2002, 2003, the point of a remaster almost 20 plus years later is a lot of people aren't going to have played the original, so a remaster should theoretically get you excited about wanting to be in that universe. But this remaster is just so shoddily done that there's really not defending the work. But I bought it on a sale, and it's worth experiencing. But it's just prepared for a lot of bugs and a lot of issues and a lot of moments that are going to make you annoyed. But it's a cool world. So
yeah, Loon, I feel like this is going to be something you end up diving into. I got the feeling there.
It is. I have a high tolerance for jank, but the thing, like, I have the thing. Haha. Yeah, the thing that bothers me the most, though, is remastered as a tag. Right.
Right.
What did they master when if you've had so many issues? Like, it should just be a re-release then, right? It's just a port.
Yep.
Like, I don't know. There needs to be like some. I don't think that like something that needs enforcing per se, but like some level of like quality assurance to be like, yeah, this is actually a remaster. It needs to hit these certain criterias because right now, as like gamers in this era, some people can't tell the difference between a remake and a remaster, which is baffling. Like that shouldn't ever be something that should be. You should be able to distinguish what is what. Like a remake is built from the ground up.
Well, and also publishers don't help at all either because you got like Tony Hawk 1 and 2, they call it
exactly
a remaster.
This they don't even. That's what I mean. The gamers don't know it, and they don't know it. So like, what hope do we have? That's what we just. Yeah, it's just crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
But hey, it is what it is. They're going to be winners, I guess. So
absolutely, man. Loon, what do you wanna rank next, my friend?
I'll just do a quick one with Game Dev Story. This is there was a game on PC called Game Dev Tycoon, I think is what it was called. Released quite a few years ago now. Absolutely loved it. Very addictive. Sunk hundreds of hours into that. It's just that kind of time sink-esque game. And I don't remember. I think this is Kairosoft who makes this. And they they've copied many aspects of it, but it's so dumbed down and more simplified somehow. And what they're known for is what I didn't know at the time, because I was like, oh, a game dev game finally on Xbox, let's go, that actually functions. Because they've released like 2 other ones by other developers of that kind of ilk, and they've always been buggy messes, and this wasn't. And then when I was like playing through it, I was like, no, this is, it leaves me wanting a little bit. And I was like, I've never heard of like the developer, and I clicked on them, and they're just pumping these kinds of games out. There's like 12 releases like a month of this type of, and I was like, oh. So it's kind of that thing where it's scratching a particular itch, but I don't want to give it too much like praise, because it's kind of, it's eating the leftovers of a game that was like kind of unique at the time. But I enjoyed my time. It was fun for what it was. But it'd probably land in C for me.
Another C. The C's are stacking. Is it just like are they just reskinning games?
So it's like a pixel art like strategy game where you own like your studio thing, and you have like seats that you can hire people, and they have their own little like skill sets. So like creativeness, writing, graphics, sound, and stuff. And you go through these 3 stages of making a game. And however good they are at making it is obviously how good the game will be. But you can like, the further you get in the game, the more types of genres and ideas that you're able to like combine together. So like in the very beginning, you can only make very basic concepts and stuff. But even then, that's what I mean. Like, I was hoping for them to go a little bit more, be a little bit more ambitious, because like Game Dev Tycoon already did this like 8-10 years ago, whenever it was, and it's just even more dumbed down and simplified, and it's like, it's kind of disappointing. I was hoping for a little bit more.
But I mean, like the developer, are they just reskinning the same game and re-releasing it under different names?
It's the exact same layout. So you have like game dev story, and then you have like hotel manager, and then you have like hot springs manager, and it's just like all of anything that you could make into like a management kind of, and it's just like, all right, guys, it's a bit out of control.
It's almost like the mobile games vibes too, because I've purchased a couple of them in the past because they were on Switch and PC, or excuse me, Switch, PlayStation, and PC, and now they've barely just started coming to Xbox because they're like $15 releases. They usually put out like a free trial on the other platforms, but I've bought a couple of them because they are fun, but they very much that mobile, like press this, do this, watch it level up, press this, do this, watch it grow, but it's just like, do you want to do a camping one? Do you want to do a dungeon one? Do you want to do a fantasy one? Right? Like, which isn't inherently bad, but to your point, Loon, it makes it sound like they're all kind of just the same, but with just a new coat of paint.
And that is a good point. I believe it's originally ported from mobile. I think they do the mobile releases, and that's why they're so easy to just pluck them out and port them to consoles every month. That's why they're able to spit them out so many times.
Makes sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense now. Well, Loon, I guess you want to stay on the docket here with me and talk some Outer Worlds. This is one we both played through this month.
I beat it in an hour.
Oh, that's right. You went through and did the explain that for the people.
Yeah, what does that mean? I don't even know how you do that. Unless it's like Fallout or like Far Cry 4, you can do that, but
no, it wasn't like a secret cutscene kind of thing. As everybody is well aware by now, is that I like to do achievement hunting and stuff. And with the announcement of the Outer Worlds 2 supposedly coming out this year, and we kind of had that itch to play some sci-fi RPG stuff. I played it back when it released. What was it? 2017, the original?
2019. Yep.
2019. Wow, even closer.
Yeah.
Even tip of the hat to Obsidian even more. They're able to flip over games quicker than I expected.
Absolutely.
And I beat it back then. And I enjoyed aspects of it, but I never went and like did the DLCs, and that was like kind of the goal this time. And because they've re-released it, the Spacer's Choice like next gen update and stuff, so they've cleaned it up big time. And I was like looking through the lists and being like, I could actually 100% this pretty easy. And the only thing that like gave me pause was beating it on its hardest difficulty. And I was like, because I had like little pieces of knowledge from beating the game before and knowing how to like finesse things. And you're able to, Obsidian make their games in a particular way, whereas if you're able to retain that information, you're able to like skip huge amounts of game in their games. So with the Outer Worlds, you're talking on average, what, 20, 30 hours maybe to roll credits.
Yep, it took me 25.
And like I said, I beat it in about an hour and 20 minutes because you're able to, when they're giving you quests and stuff, instead of doing them quests, you know where the reward already is. So being able to lock pick a chest to skip like 10 hours of content and then knowing that, if I use this speech check, it will give me a disguise because it has a disguise mechanic. And then I'm able to just walk through that whole ending section of the game. Which is usually, by the time you get there, you're usually like kitted out in like massive suits of armor and you're blasting your way through that base. And I was able to just walk in there and just basically talk the person down and beat it in under like just over an hour.
Wow.
Yeah, that's quite the different experience to what I had with the Outer Worlds this time around. It took me around 25 hours, which once again, even that though is like nothing for a, Western role-playing game. Like they're usually 50, 60, 70 plus hours. And so it's just so nice to jump into this thing and it's like a role-playing game that you know you're going to finish. You know what I mean? A game that you know you can get through, a game that and also, dude, just like you said, the skill checks are so frequent and so satisfying. So I went in and just min-maxed the hell out of my character. I went in and totally leveled up all of my speech and really didn't give a damn about anything else. Made him at least moderately competent in combat so I could get through it, but just tried to avoid combat at all costs. Just talking, persuading, lying, charming my way through the game. And it was such a damn blast. The characters are so well written in the Outer Worlds. Obsidian's writing is god tier, dude. Absolutely god tier. You know, I think to the not to spoil anything, but it's his name, Vicar Max. Vicar,
Yep.
yeah. The whole like side thing you can do. I don't know if you did it where it's I'm assuming you probably did because there's an achievement for it, I think. But like the hallucination, like it's pretty much
Mhm.
your psilocybin or your DMT. It's like that sort of thing. And he has such a specific defined character type for the entirety of the game. And then you get to that side quest, he takes this hallucinogen and he becomes a totally different person from that point forward. He's so introspective. And this is something that I I think this is the case. If you don't do that, his character never changes. And he stays this more practical.
Yep.
That is such a wild thing that a side quest can shift and shape a character in such a dramatic way to where it carries over for the rest of the game. And now he's like a hippie, where he used to be like a philosopher and a such a science driven mindset. Well, not really so much science, but more practical.
Yep. They've mastered that because that's the thing that I fell in love with Pillars for, is that you have, not to like dive into like spoilers, but you have a companion that has like a multi personality, the sort of thing. They basically have a spirit trapped inside of them, and you're able to, if you just go through the game and you don't do the side quest things, that'll be the end of it. You'll get to the end of the credits, and every now and then the thing will chime in, but you're able to help that person, and that actually changes the person's personality, and that's what makes their game so well lived in. Is the fact that you get to the end of these like RPGs and stuff, and a character that you think, with video games, it's usually very two-dimensional. A lot of characters, they have their personality, and that is it from start to finish. They may go through adversities, but they won't change their personality. They just have a task that needs completing. Whereas he actually goes through it much like Max does, and by the end of it, he changes over the course, and it is, like I said, very well lived in.
Yeah, it's such good writing. Like, I cannot wait to play Avowed. I cannot wait to play The Outer Worlds 2. They craft narrative on a different level, man. They really, really do. Their characters are so well designed and motherfucker. I did the same damn thing. We're gonna keep it with but my fucking microphone again.
I didn't even notice.
I did the same shit.
You can't really notice, man. I thought you had it in, but yeah,
Oh, well, I'm not gonna go back on this one.
we're too deep in now.
Yeah.
That was your inner Max coming out, like when he gets given the book.
Let me know if this fucks everything up.
It happens, man. Things happen.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
I'll just cut back in. I greatly apologize. My brain isn't working well today. I didn't have my damn microphone hooked in, so the audio that you've heard for the first half, I'm sure is dog shit on my end. But got it plugged in for the rest of the video. Anyways, The Outer Worlds is a great game. I would rank it a S tier or A tier game. What about you, Loon?
I would place it. That's so difficult because I'm in the same boat. Are you leaning more towards A or S out of that?
It's probably for me more A, I would say, but like it's one of the two. S for me is like if I'm thinking about S, I'm like, would I give this a 9.5 out of 10? I know that's a crazy way to think about it, but A is like 8.6 to 9.4, and then S is like 8.7 to 9 point whatever. I don't know if I don't know what I'm saying.
That's a good way to look at it. S should be like the pinnacle cream of the crop, like it ticks almost every single box, whereas A is still amazing, clearly, and can be almost S, but maybe there's a few things that bump it down or just make it so it's not quite there in your book. So that totally makes sense, man.
I think the narrative is S, but everything else about the game is A.
That's so probably true.
I think A.
Okay. Because it's not like a world beater. Yeah. It's not like a world beater from the combat standpoint. It's like a more refined Fallout, or to some degree, I would say a better first person shooter experience than a Fallout, and then maybe missing elements for I'd say A tier.
It's much better shooting than Alpha Protocol, that's for sure.
Oh God, absolutely. Yes. Absolutely, yes. That's awesome. All right, Jeffrey, you're back on the board, my friend. I'm so damn bummed about this. It's the second time I've done it to these guys, and so just as a peek behind the curtain, so I'll record videos with this thing plugged into my microphone, and I connect it to my iPhone just as a quick, process. But then when I switch to my computer, I have to plug in a different cord because it doesn't use the same one to my iPhone, obviously. And then and I just wasn't going to waste these guys' time going back through it again. So greatly apologize, guys. But yeah, Jeffrey, you are back on the clock, my friend, with your next ranking.
You still had your good, manly, sultry voice. Don't worry. No one's going to be offended, I promise.
God, man, my brain.
It's okay. Our brains are all broken in different ways. So I'll make a quick one here. I'm going to go with Blinx the Time Sweeper, which is from the original Xbox. This is what I like about Xbox. Again, Xbox, the newer consoles in general, because I do appreciate their backwards compatibility. So this is a 3D platformer from back on the OG Xbox. I'm playing it on Series X. The reason I actually started playing this because I was kind of I'm always on a platforming binge, a platformer binge, but I specifically wanted to dive into Blinx because I was really considering, I used to have an original Xbox. I sold it, but I really want to get another one to start collecting for it because the games are a lot cheaper than PS2, especially like Silent Hill and the horror games, which are just unaffordable on PS2. But before spending a few $100 on Xbox and some games, I was like, well, let me actually just play an original Xbox game and just kind of see if I'm actually in that headspace and mood to want to spend the money. So Blinx the Time Sweeper, it's just a fun little 3D platformer. Obviously, Microsoft was trying to make it their mascot, their poster child, and that didn't quite work despite the first two games being pretty good. The unique thing about Blinx is that you have these like time manipulation powers, which is really cool. So like Blinx the cat can go through these little stages. It's just like a stage-based platformer, but you collect these little power-ups that can either let you pause time or fast forward or rewind, and you can kind of use them at certain points in the level to like either help with battles or rebuild part of a stage to get to a collectible. And then between stages, you can like upgrade Blinx and his like little vacuum to suck up enemies. It's a really cool little fun quirky platformer, but it is hard to rank a game like this because like, do I rank it based on how it plays now, or do I rank it how it would have been back in the day, right? Because it's obviously very janky and rough around the edges like a lot of platformers were, but it's a fun little cozy platformer with some cool time powers. It's a good little B tier platformer in my
Nice.
book. And it's nice that it's backwards compatible. So
It's so funny how many of these there were, because when you said that, I was like, damn, that's right. Xbox had Blinx, Conquer Live and Reloaded. They
Voodoo
had
Vince.
Voodoo Vince.
Voodoo Vince, yeah. I love Voodoo
Um,
Vince.
they had another one too that I'm blanking on. They had
I just
Psychonauts,
Yeah, true.
which was exclusive for a bit, I think.
Yeah, they had a lot. Again, collecting for the
Banjo, right?
Xbox, not on the original Xbox, no.
Yeah.
No, that was N64, and then eventually with they had Grabbed by the Ghoulies was rare, but then
Yeah.
Wow, they didn't put
no,
a
that didn't
Banjo
come
game on the
till
original Xbox.
no, it didn't come till Nuts and Bolts. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
It's like I want to collect for the original Xbox right now because again, you can get so many good games for a good price, but like to get a console, at least where I'm finding it, is still at least a couple $100, which isn't awful, but like it's still an investment if you don't have a lot of money
Yeah.
like myself. So anyway,
Yeah, it's an investment, but you're so right, dude. It's such a I loved collecting for that thing. I'm pretty much kind of tapped on because I went and grabbed pretty much all the exclusives, and there's still a few that I don't have that are a little bit like what is it, Steel Battalion, the super expensive, like I'm not gonna get that because I'm not gonna play it. You know what I mean? It would just be collecting it to collect dust. But the ones that I wanted to play, I ended up grabbing. But it's such a fun console to collect for. And yeah, Blinks is a fun game, man. It's a really fun game.
yeah.
All right, Loon, what you thinking, my brother? Do you want me to go real quick, and then that way we'll line up with three apiece?
Yeah, we can do that.
I'll throw Body because we just did some 3D platformer talk. I'll throw Body right alongside I'll throw it in the C tier for Body. I don't even remember the name of this damn thing. Body Byteland Overcooked,
Overclocked.
Overclocked.
It doesn't roll off the tongue very easily, does it? Yeah.
just call it Body. I mean, or even just Body. What is it? Body Byteland. I don't know.
Well, it's called Overclocked because this release is all the DLC in one. That's why. So
Okay.
they added it all into one, so it's like one complete package. But otherwise, I think it was just called like Body Byteland. So
Okay, yeah, that's it's a fun 3D platformer if you like Astro Bot and you're more of a PC nerd than a PS5 nerd. This might be your thing. It's talking about PC tech as Astrobot's trying to repair a PlayStation 5. They're trying to repair a PC, I think, something like that with the story. They do have like little cutscenes and they try to actually get you to care somewhat about the story, which I was impressed by. Yeah, it's just a good little collectathon 3D platformer. I can't sit here and say that there was anything in the game that was like revelatory. They had some cool little like you're going down a slide trying to collect all the parts, and they had a bit where you were like able to speed up your character and then jump around, and then like you had to time up your speed boost to get to the platforming sections, and there's some light puzzle solving and a little bit of combat, nothing over it's not challenging whatsoever. It's not a game that you're not gonna play it and be like, this is my game of the year. It doesn't hit that Astrobot feeling in that sense. It's not that level of polish or anything, but it is just a high quality 3D platformer that I would have never, because I'm doing this thing where, and I don't have a lot of them here, but I jumped into a bunch of weird stuff. I jumped into Race Kings or Drift Kings or something like that. Like I've been jumping into just a bunch of new releases, just seeing if, because I'm going to the PlayStation Network and sorting from new release and just seeing if there's anything I can find that really, really, connects with me. These cheap $10 things. And Body Byteland was the best one I played out of the probably like 5-6 games that I jumped into. I played like 3 hours of it, didn't finish it, and I don't have really any desire to finish it. But it is like high quality, and if you're just craving a 3D platformer on your PS5, then Body Byteland Overclocked is a game you can play. It's certainly playable.
how is the frame rate? So the reason I'm specifically asking, because this was going to be a day one buy for me because I love platformers, but I kept hearing that the frame rate was pretty abysmal, so I just didn't want to buy it. So did it seem fine on PS5, the frame rate?
Yeah, it wasn't
Okay,
bad at all on
cool,
PS5. I don't remember running into any technical issues at all
cool.
in the game. And I'll actually talk about that with another one here in a second where I've been hearing that there are some technical issues and I didn't run into. And that's always the bummer is like there will be games that people talk about as flawless that I'll run into issues with. And it's such a case by case basis for the amount of technical issues that you're going to have with a game, even if you're playing on the same platform. So I'm not going to say there are no hitches or stutters or frame drops, but I didn't really experience anything that was all that noticeable. So,
Cool.
yeah, pretty polished.
Do you want me to knock out one really super quick since then we each have three then?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that'll work.
I'm just going to throw Matchbox Driving Adventures into D. I'm
Ooh.
just going to say this up front. I buy a lot of games that most people would consider not good or bad, and I probably spend way too much money. The publisher Outright Games, who puts out basically like all licensed games, I buy so many of those because you can finish them in like 2 to 4 hours, and sometimes it's all I want, and I play games for the feel and the vibes. However, Matchbox Driving Adventures is not a good game. Maybe that won't come as a surprise to anybody, but I still bought this for like $20, but because I wanted just like a fun little cartoony racing game. But this is just buggy. It doesn't play well. I still platinumed it and got spent and like did everything I could because my little like monkey brain wanted to just like tick off all the boxes. But it's just a budget, rough around the edges, little cartoony racing game. And you could say it's for kids, but that's a little bit unfair because like you should also give kids and like young ones good games as well, not just
Right.
crap. Like that's always a thing. People are always like, "Oh, it's for kids." Well, kids should also play good games. They
Yeah.
shouldn't spend $40 for crap. But yeah, this was really rough around the edges. Definitely not worth $20. But I'm still an idiot and I still platinum it because I have no life and happiness apparently. So
I'm kind of bummed to hear that because I saw that you put this on here and I had never heard of it. And then I went and looked at the trailer and I was like, "Ooh, that's a game right up my alley." But now I might steer clear of that alley.
maybe like less than $5. Yeah, there's some fun to have. Like the Matchbox cars, you can upgrade them, and there are some cool like levels. But it's really it doesn't control well. The drifting is terrible. The missions are repetitive. Like I was bored within about 20 minutes. But again, being a stupid idiot, I played it anyway because I have no life. So maybe for like $5. But it's not terrible. But it's not certainly worth $20 like this idiot did. So
I'd imagine these go on sale pretty quickly too. Go ahead, Lou.
yeah, they do.
Is it like an open world or is it like the Hot Wheels games?
That's a good question. It's basically like you have this little overworld map and you kind of select all of the different races. There's like 30 or 40 races or like different events, but it's not open world. It's just select the event, go to it, upgrade. There's some cool ideas. It's just not polished at all. It's just very rough around the edges and not all that fun. But hey, for a cheaper price.
Yeah, that kind of makes me more likely to play a racing game certain times. Like it depends on the mood, but like sometimes I literally just want to pop in a racing game and just do races. Like not
Yeah.
navigate an open world, not do anything but drift, possibly shift and whatever else rhymes with
And
drift and shift.
Crash.
And
A lot of
crash.
crashing.
Yeah, your best bet would be to use your money and play the Hot Wheels Unleashed games because those are very much different than this, but they're really polished and really fun. So yeah.
I need to play
Anyway.
that second one. I haven't played the second one yet. The first one's so good.
Yeah. So don't trust my advice because I spend money on stupid things. So there you go.
Oh, as do I. As do I, my friend. I bought a like Resident Evil knockoff game, Bazoola Evil or something. It's like, what in the hell am I doing with my life?
Me too, brother. All right. Who's
All
up next then? We got 3 apiece left.
Lone, kick us off with one of your trifecta, and then we shall ramble through the rest.
I'll go with the one that I didn't actually end up finishing. I thought I was going to finish this, and then I got to like I think it says on the save file 70 like 6%. It's such a grind. And that's Enchanted Arms. I was enjoying the opening parts of it. And it's definitely like a rough game with many, many things, but it was doing the kind of tactical grid turn-based combat like decently well and being able to like capture you don't capture them, you get cores and then you're able to create like monsters and stuff. But just the random encounter rate is absurd. And that's something I hate. And I've always had this stance. I don't understand why you can't like open up the pools menu and just turn it off. How hard is that to just let me toggle the grind? And then when I feel like I've done enough grinding, because it was getting to the point where and you're talking like I'm having to move these. They're on a grid constantly. So it's not just like Final Fantasy and stuff where you're able, if you're late in the game and you're blitzing through these monsters, you can kind of just, you can basic attack a lot of them. But you have to like move and your stuff is like targeting specific parts of the grid. It randomizes the position of your characters every time you launch a battle as well, which baffles me. That would be like going into like Darkest Dungeon and then having like your entire party shuffled. Because then you spawn in and it's just like, oh, so like this character's just useless for this opening turn because I can't target anybody. Like that's how bad of game design is that? Come on, Miyazaki. But yeah, it's got like decent elements. The most fun I had is just the crappy voice acting. It's so bad, but it's so like charming at the same time. There were like 2 instances in the game where it's just like, man, someone paid you to say that. That's a thing. Okay. But it's one I want to get through, but it's just become that slog and like the final thing. Like I'm so split on it because I was enjoying the opening parts of it.
How's the story? Like, I know the characters and voice acting isn't good, but like, how's the actual story? Is it engaging or not really? Also, is it fantasy? Sort of.
It's a mix of like a lot of things. It's kind of fantasy, but it's not because there is like technology. At the same time, it's kind of that like maybe like Final Fantasy 12 kind of thing of like where they blend things in together and meld it. The story is there is an ice queen and she wants to conquer the world. That's kind of like the there's like elemental gods that are like locked under the earth, and you have like a fist that can, when you punch things, it disenchants things basically.
Just like normal life.
Yep. So it's really nothing special in the story department. It feels like a cop out, but it's probably just going to go with C.
Loading up that C tier, a lot of average this month, a lot of average.
What would make you finish? I know if you're that far in, what would make you finish it if you're really not enjoying? Is it just because you're close to the end, sort of, or what would even make you to get there and push yourself through it? Then, if you don't seem to enjoy much about it,
is piss easy. It's probably what's going to draw me to it. It's one of them things where you get the 100% for finishing the game. So that's probably going to be the thing that pushes me through to do it. But I was enjoying aspects of it. It's just that thing of like stop, start, stop, start. It's like I said, the encounter rate is insane. When you end a battle and then you take 2 steps and there's no sprinting. So you take 2 steps and then you're ripped back in and then you finish that battle and you take 2, and it's just like, all right, that's what I mean. Like, just give me a toggle, man, please.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, I hate to add more fuel to the sea fire, but Dynasty Warrior Origins is like the epitome of a C tier game. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I think, there's even parts of it you can maybe argue are closer to a B tier, but you're pressing square a whole lot, and maybe triangle every now and then. It can get dull, but they did add in some cool things. Like you have boss fights and there's like a cool parry that actually feels satisfying to use, and you can evade, and there's abilities that you unlock, and it'll be like, now you can press square, 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 triangle. Now you can press square, 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 triangle, triangle. And it's like, all right, yeah, okay, this is wonderful. It is. There's cool things, but like they try with presentation, they try with there is like a story here that's somewhat compelling. Like I was somewhat getting into what was going on in the narrative, but it was just the thing for me where after about 5 hours of playing it, I was like, how long is this? I looked it up. It was ranging around like 20-hour mark. I was like, I can't do this for another 15 hours. I don't dislike the game whatsoever. And that's the thing I'm kind of learning about myself in 2025 is like, okay, like a game for 5 hours opposed to powering through the next 15. and then disliking it. Because if I played this for another 15 hours, it would have become very, very repetitive if I'm doing that exact same thing. But yeah, there's a little bit more challenge than I expected, which I appreciated. It's not just like slashing your way through. I mean, you do have hundreds upon hundreds of enemies on screen at one time, and you are slashing a bunch of them bitches. But there are some boss fights where it's like, yeah, okay, I'm actually thinking a little bit here, and that's nice. Nothing at all. I was just playing on the normal difficulty. It's nothing at all that's going to you're not going to struggle getting through the game whatsoever. But, or unless, I should say, the 5 hours I played, and it might hit some crazy difficulty spike. I doubt it. I don't think that's the type of game they're trying to build whatsoever. Just fun, over the top action. And, yeah, if you're into this and you want to see 3,000 people on the screen and slash through them, Dynasty Warrior Origins is probably the best place you can do it.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't they, because I know Dynasty Warriors fans are pretty diehard, didn't they ditch the open world of whatever the last one was? I can't remember. And this went to more of like the map base. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
they have like and it's cool where it's kind of like Expedition 33 was talking about, where you have the overworld where you can just take your big old character and kind of plot along the small little world where it's like you're stomping along and going 100 miles by taking 2 steps. And yeah, there's some cool, cute, charming things about Dynasty Warriors Origins. I definitely don't dislike the game whatsoever, but for me, like, usually when a game starts to hit that B tier, I'm probably going to finish it. This is a good C tier that, like, is probably B tier quality in a lot of ways, but not enough for me to stick through and see the ending.
Yeah, fair enough.
Is this your first Dynasty Warriors game?
No, so I've never finished any of them. That's the thing. It's like I played them on the PS2, but it's kind of the exact same experience, except with those I would play 30 minutes to an hour and jump out. Whereas this one, it got me for 5 hours, but that's also because I paid $70 for it, and that was a little bit stupid.
I don't think it's stupid, because they were raving with the reviews, but I think that's got a lot of it based in how bad Dynasty Warriors 9 was.
Yeah.
How awful that game was, that anything that came after of it, like, it was like, man, this is great. Because what I saw of it, it looked good. It looked a lot better than Dynasty Warriors 9. But like you said, it's that kind of thing where they can only go so far in any direction with a Muso game.
Yeah.
You can't really do much more than what they do. Really.
Good point.
And you wouldn't want, if that is the style of game you're looking for, you wouldn't want them to do much more than they're doing. Like, this is
exactly,
this is the best of the best for that genre, one of the best of the best for that genre. So, like, I'm not at all diminishing the game by putting it in the C tier. It's just, that's a genre for me that is like a C tier genre when it's at its best. So yeah, Dynasty Warriors Origins, go and check it out if that is something that looks appealing to you. Obviously, I'll have gameplay running so that you can get a glimpse of it. Into it. All right, so we are coming down to the wire. Jeffrey, 3 more on your board until we're at the final 2. My friend, what do you want to ramble and rank next?
So I'm going to go with Visions of Mana. I'll try to not spend too long because I want to spend a long time on this. What?
We're making good time, dude. So take as long as you want. Yeah, we're fine.
All right, we got to take 30 minutes. So
absolutely.
No, Visions of Mana. So it's a JRPG. I really, really adore this game. It's right up there in my top 3, at least off the top of my head, JRPGs, alongside Shadow Hearts Covenant from PS2 and Ni no Kuni 2 Revenant Kingdom. I adore Visions of Mana. Hands down, not even in just JRPGs, it's one of the most gorgeous games around. Every time I get to a new city or town or part of the world to explore, I'm like, surely it's not going to look better than this. Surely it's not going to be more lush and beautiful and vibrant. And I'm constantly blown away. Like, the amount of times I spend 10 to 15 minutes just sitting there looking at the world, not doing anything, it's astounding. Obviously the Mana games have been going since way back from the SNES days, I believe. Is that right? Was it Secret of Mana was the first one, I think?
Yeah, I believe so.
So there's been a lot of Mana games, and I've never really played most of them. The only one I really remember is Trials of Mana from a number of years ago, and I enjoyed it, but I kind of fell off it. So I haven't finished Visions of Mana yet. I'm about 30 hours in, but as you guys know, JRPGs can take a long, long time, and usually it's going to take me a few months, if not up to 6 months, to finish a JRPG nowadays. I just
Right.
don't have the time. But Visions of Mana is absolutely stunning. It's beautiful. It's not perfect. There are a couple things that I'll address that do hold it back from pure greatness, but it's just so charming and wholesome and whimsical. The story is emotional and weighty, but it has so much humor. I find myself laughing, not in the ways of Loon, like you said, Enchanted Arms, because the voice acting is really good, and there's some really good jokes and humor. But it's all very wholesome. That's what's so cool about it. Like, I prefer a more wholesome, charming game, and it really leans into just being like a good fantasy story. The world is amazing to explore. It is an action RPG. The action can get a bit repetitive, so basically the whole thing of the Visions of Mana, or the Mana games in general, is you can constantly swap out your character classes. In this game, they're called vessels. So as you go through the story, you find different elementals, and those unlock different vessels. And so within your party of playable characters, because you can switch between them, you can swap vessels on the fly, which completely changes your look. It changes your weapon style. It changes your elemental. It changes all of the moves and abilities. And then you level up elemental paths for each character, but you can swap at any time. So you're basically never locked into one style, which is really cool. And I don't mean like resetting things. You just can swap whenever you want, depending on what region you're going to. At first, it's incredibly overwhelming because like it doesn't give you all of them up front, but like you see all of it in the inventory and your menu and all that, and it looks pretty overwhelming. But the more you go through the story, it's just such a good story. The characters, and Loon, you can probably attest, especially like in a JRPG, you really need to like the characters, right? Like to really stick with it for the long haul. And the melding of characters in this game is just beautiful. It's very emotional and weighty and just a fantastic game. So I'm going to personally put it in A tier. I really, really love it, at least at the almost 30-hour mark. I want to put it in S tier, but there are two things I should say that do hold it back. The first is the side quests. The main story is phenomenal. The main quests are phenomenal. The side quests are just fetch quests.
Are they skippable?
Oh, yeah, you don't have to do any
cool.
side quests. So, yeah, they're completely skippable, but that's also a bummer because, like, I want to do everything and anything in this game because the world is so darn gorgeous. Like, it's stunning. It's a very Ghibli-esque, almost like cel-shaded Wind Waker. It's so gorgeous. I really can't say enough. I should have sent you footage, Brandon, because I want to just show all these locations. But the side quests are literally just fetch quests. It's like such a detractor. Like, it's just go kill these 5 things and bring them back for some money. And you get money so easily, it's just kind of pointless. So the side quests are nearly pointless. It doesn't build out the story. You don't learn anything new. The other big downfall for me is that exploration is great, but it's not rewarding apart from getting a good view. So you might go all the way out of your way in these like zoned areas. It's kind of open world, but it's also an overworld and it's broken up into zones. So it's not like fully open world. Each zone tells you how many chests there are, how many like elemental things there are, so you know what to search for if you're a collector. However, you might go out of your way to a chest somewhere, and it might just be an item that you can buy at a shop for like the cheapest amount of money.
Oh.
Or you might get a weapon that's hard to get. But the problem is I find exploration isn't rewarding because you just don't know. But I still keep doing it because I want to see every nook and cranny of the world. So because of the side content, because exploration isn't as rewarding with the rewards itself, that does drop it down a little bit for me. But I'll stop talking. It's a phenomenal JRPG, definitely underrated, definitely being slept on. It's just stunning. It's truly stunning.
Well, my friend, you sold me on Still Wakes the Deep. I got a physical copy of that. It just came in the mail, and
Nice.
I'm looking right now at a new copy of Visions of Mana for $40. That one's you're hurting my wallet, but that one's coming to me as well, man. I needed someone to sell me on this game because I wanted to play it, but I just wasn't sure. Like, I wasn't sure. Am I jumping into a 7? Am I jumping into an 8? But this sounds like I'm jumping into like a 9.
For me, it's like again, I should also mention, Brandon, again, like I'm just so enamored by the story, characters, and world. The gameplay itself, the actual combat can get repetitive. However, you can constantly switch up your character classes and weapons.
And they play different, right?
And they play differently.
Oh,
yeah, and then you can switch between any. You have like your main character. His name's Val. He's like a soul guard, but you can switch between any of your party at any point on the fly to play as, which completely changes changes it up. But some people might find the combat repetitive. However, I would give this probably like a 9.2. It's just there are a couple things that do bring it down, at least at the 30-hour mark. But I don't know, man. I just don't hear anybody talking about it. It might be one of like the most beautiful games in like my top 5 most beautiful games ever. It's just so freaking stunning. I really can't. That's not hyperbole. It really is. It really, really is. So anyway.
So you've sold it big time, but I have 2 questions.
Sure. Yeah.
Because these are always, one is specific to what you said, but there's also one gripe I have.
Okay.
Is it a save point system JRPG, or can I save anywhere?
Ooh, that's a good question. That's a good question, Loon. So so it's a save point RPG. However, but the caveat to that is they're littered everywhere.
Okay.
Because again, it's not an open world. Like it's an overworld, but you go in these, they're condensed zones that you can explore the condensed zone within probably less than 30 to 40 minutes if you want to see it all. And there's probably 5 save points within that area. And you also have traversal mechanics. So yes, it does autosave very well, but it is a manual save point in that sense, save point system, but it's very, very generous. So
right. And then you said about the vessel things and being able to switch. That sounds really good on paper because you're talking about, if you were, an example, a fire boss, and then you had fire-based teammates in other JRPGs, that kind of screws you out because you're like, I'm kind of useless. Are you able to switch them in the middle of that combat, or is it something outside of combat that you have to do?
Good question. Yeah. You can't switch them in combat. But again, each of your party members is going to have a different vessel. So you can have them have no vessel. So like they'll just be a standard character, but yeah, you can each have them be whatever you want, and you can swap them at any point, just not mid battle. However, the battles aren't long. Like even like the tough boss battles are maybe 5 to 8 minutes. So you're not really losing anything. There's always a save point right before. So there's difficulty settings too. There's like easy to hard or whatever. So you can't on the fly, but you can customize everything else around to tailor it to how you need. And even if you have like a fire against fire, you're still going to be able to do plenty of damage anyway. So as an example. So yeah, it's really, really good. So,
nice, dude. Visions of Mana finally got sold to me. I am jumping into that bad boy. Faux show.
All right. Who's next?
So who is next? What was the order we were going in? Would it be me or would it be you?
I think we can just go left to right now. So it'd be Brandon, me, and then back to Jeffrey.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Perfect. Ninja Gaiden Black 2 or Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. I don't know how they say it. Anywho. So the Shadow Drop hit us. We were reacting to this live to the Xbox Developer Direct, which was an absolute blast, and I appreciate y'all for joining me. That was such a damn good showcase. But I'm sitting there, I'm looking at the Shadow Drop. Ninja Gaiden is a series I've dabbled with, but I've never really dove into. Like, I've never really fully submerged myself in the depths of the Ninja Gaiden sea. And so I booted up Ninja Gaiden Black. I ended up buying it on PS5 because I've been in kind of a little bit of a trophy groove. That's neither here nor there. We'll talk about that at a different time. So I ended up buying.
Apologies, I've got your bit.
Loon, you've rubbed off on him, man.
It 100% is Loon's fault. 1000%. Like I never even knew I never even thought about connecting my accounts or anything. I'd been playing a PlayStation 3 for years, just with like log into the use. Like I could have just easily connected my PlayStation 3 to my current account. Trophies and all that stuff never even crossed my mind until I started talking to Loon. And now I'm like, I'm on the road to, I'm trying to get my what's it called? Level for PlayStation, your trophy levels. I'm trying to get that bad boy up to 400. That's my goal for the year. I want to get to 400.
Loon, if Brandon has to go to therapy for this new addiction, you're gonna have to start paying for footing his bills for that.
Okay, so Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, Ninja Gaiden Black 2. I jumped into it and I lost 5 hours the first day. I could not put this thing down. I forgot how much I missed games of this ilk because we get so few of them now. So few character action games where you're just rushing through that world, quick moving combat, no stamina meter in sight. you don't have to dodge roll if you don't want to. The man, the amount of fun I had playing this damn thing. I was stunned, dude. I beat it in like 3 days, 3 days, just burned through this game. I think it took me maybe 10, 11 hours, something like that. There's definitely things you can pick apart for sure. It's a little bit dated with its camera system. The camera gets a bit wonky, and if you're in a tough boss battle, actually, let's pause there. The difficulty for Ninja Gaiden, once again, just played it on normal, so I have no idea whatsoever if people are going to hit me in the comments and be like, you got to bump it up to extreme devil difficulty, dude. That's where the real challenge is. I have no idea. Maybe that is true, but I heard so much about Ninja Gaiden just being punishing, and I played through it on normal, like died a few times, but nothing crazy at all. Like this is a Devil May Cry level difficulty, a little bit beyond that, a little bit beyond a God of War. It's nothing overly punishing whatsoever. And I know Loon, you actually ended up diving into Ninja Gaiden Sigma 1 or Ninja, and you said like, because I was telling you, we were chatting, and I was like, dude, they litter you with save points in Ninja Gaiden Black 2. So like you're not, and you can always go in and change your weapons at any time. If depending on the style of the boss, sometimes you'll need to wield a staff that you're spinning nonstop because projectiles are coming super quickly, or like there's these enemies rapidly approaching you. So you're spinning that staff just to quickly kind of do a little bit of chip damage, but more so to keep enemies off of you. And then, like I said, dude, your save points are right there before the boss. You're not going through 20 minutes to trek back to a boss fight or anything like that. You might have to go through a little tunnel and clear out a few enemies before you get to the boss, but often, with the save system, with the normal difficulty, once again, I have no idea. Maybe on the hard difficulty, this isn't there. But on the normal difficulty, you go up to the save point and it just totally heals you. So, like, you go into most boss fights with 100% health. And once again, maybe that's a thing for the remaster that wasn't there originally. I don't know. But this was so damn fun, so damn fun, man. And this is a genre I love, the Devil May Cries and the Bayonettas and the, even the classic God of Wars. And I just love this genre so damn much. And so to jump into one that's this good that I was able to binge like that and just get so locked into, it was a treat to play through. Like I said, there's definitely gripes. Camera's rough. Some of the platforming is very bad, very, very bad, very, very tedious at times. And you'll like get to the edge of a cliff or whatever, and you'll think, okay, well, I can't run up against the edge of the cliff because I'll fall off. And so you end up jumping, but you jump too early because of the weird camera positioning. So you fall back down and you got to run all the way back up and redo everything. And it's like you're losing 5-10 minutes. But if you're losing 5-10 minutes of progress constantly, or not constantly, but consistently, it's like that adds up to an hour of lost time. And I'm always thinking about that shit, which I know is probably not good for my sanity. But so there's things like that. But then I start realizing, okay, certain cliffs I can literally run to the edge of and just keep running, and I don't fall off at all. And so I start doing that immediately where I'm like, okay, so I'm just going to run to the edge of the cliff and keep running, and that'll let me know if this is the point where I need to jump. And then other times I'm running to the edge of the cliff and I just fall right off. I'm like, what the hell do you want me to do here?
That would drive me insane.
It's rough. It's rough. Some of that stuff is very, very rough. But dude, there was a moment in this game where I'm roaming around. And like I said, you can swap to different weapons and stuff like that. I'm just roaming around this level, and it's like a museum, and there's all this cool stuff encased in glass. And I see this dope ass sword, and I just smash. Anytime I see glass, I just smash it. Silent Hill, Resident Evil. It's just fun to smash glass.
And real life too. It's
when he's down getting his groceries.
He has no windows in his house.
The breeze.
The cool breeze.
So I'm in this museum and it's just all this glass that I'm just smashing. And there's certain things where I'll just walk up to it. It's a little note I can read. Cool, I'm reading lore that I don't give a shit about. And then there's this sword though. And I go up to it, I smash the glass. I'm able to actually take the sword, dude.
That's
It
cool.
was such a cool moment where it was like all of this me being a gorilla just running, rampaging through this museum, smashing glass. I actually ended up getting a reward out of it. And not only is it a sword, it was the main weapon that I ended up using for the rest of the game because it was so damn powerful. And like, that, I don't know, that was just such a cool moment of discovery where it's like that's something you could have easily passed, never got that weapon, but then I end up using it. It's like the Buster Sword. Essentially, it's this huge sword, and I'm just raining down attacks on enemies. And then I have my nunchucks that I'm going through, and y'all know I like the rapid fire combat. I like the da-da-da-da-da-da. I want to be in there like a drummer for a progressive metal band or some shit. And, and so I'm going through with my nunchucks,
Oh.
just lighting enemies up. Um, some great boss design, some great world building, dude. There's a moment towards the end of the game when it's raining blood and it's just so metal, dude. It's so gangster. Um, I this was so fun, dude. This was so fun. I know. Listen,
I haven't seen you this excited about anything ever. I don't think this is great. This is great, man. This is great
And he
content.
puts
Watch.
it in the C pile.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, wah, wah, wah. Yeah, it's got to go high based on the amount of like pure childlike excitement you have right now. Is like it's very exciting, man.
here's the thing, though, Jeffrey, is that it's more so the genre than the game. I'm more so excited to be jumping into an action game of this ilk than I am to necessarily be excited to jump into this specific game. There's
Okay.
specific things that this game does so well that I was like, hell yes, character design and and the gore, dude, the gore. You're cutting enemies' heads off, legs off. You're cutting their leg off, and they just end up crawling to you like a zombie because they're missing their leg. They can't walk, so they crawl. That's
That's how it works,
that's
probably.
how
Yeah.
it works, I guess. But you'll just go and press triangle, and your dude will jump up in the air and like do a front flip and smash down and just completely decapitate the head. The blood will go spewing. It's so good. Um, but
Oh.
at the same time, this game has a lot of quirks, a few quirks, a few issues, and it's weird for me to see TLOU 2 sitting at the B tier being like, I mean, as pristinely polished to the nines where you're not gonna run into a snafu, you're not gonna run into a bug, you're not gonna run into any of those annoyances, but there's something kind of charming in the jank at times as well. Oh man.
I'll say this, Grant. I think that's the power of it being one of your favorite genres.
Right.
Do you understand how many crappy Souls-likes I give free passes because it is a Souls-like?
That's a good
When the DNA and the soul core foundation of a game is so strong, even a crappy attempt at that can take it from being a game that would have been F tier all the way up to a C tier because it's copying someone else's work. It just doesn't do what that work does well
Yeah.
as the original intended thing. So I know that you're saying about like obviously The Last of Us 2 is like a masterpiece and stuff, but dude, you're jumping out of your seat there for a
Yeah.
moment there where you're gonna go through the roof.
Yeah.
Well, there's at least there's no glass on the roof. Thank goodness.
And
I'd
what you
be-
gotta keep in what you gotta keep in mind as well is what is the point of playing a game? It's the enjoyment factor of it.
Yeah, but
Way more so than, the artistic what they've accomplished and stuff. It's how much fun you had.
I
good point.
will say though,
good
to
point.
counter that, is you will have moments where you're not enjoying Ninja Gaiden Black 2 because of the technical snafus, because of the issues. Whereas with The Last of Us 2, you literally will never have that. Like you will never once run. I shouldn't say everybody. I'm sure somebody clipped through the world or whatever. But like, I never once while playing that game was like, this is frustrating. The only thing I was like, this is frustrating is the pacing, which that's so good about Ninja Gaiden Black, man. It's paced so
Exactly.
well.
there's
It's
always going to
going
be pros
A.
and yeah,
Yeah.
I was going to say.
You also can't really compare the like a modern. I mean, I know Last of Us 2 and Ninja Guy. It's still like you can't. They're it's like apples and oranges. Like they're not even the same style of game, right? So like and so this is also a remaster, remake, or whatever it is. So it's even how do you compare those two, right? Like
Yeah,
So
but
they're
it's The
just
Last
different
of Us 2.
experiences.
The Last of Us 2 is a remake, technically.
I mean, yeah, which is completely asinine, obviously, but
so
yeah. So
embarrassing. But
okay,
then
so A.
I start thinking also that I'm going to leave it in A, but that's a slippery A. I'm leaving it in A, but here's the thing. I also think about something like DMC5 or
Hmm?
honestly even Bayonetta 1 where
Mhm.
you don't have those issues. You don't have the camera positioning issues. You don't have any of the technical snafus. Those games are smooth as butter biscuits. And I don't know. Ninja Gaiden Black 2 is definitely rough around the edges, but I think tonally at times, like, I don't know if I'd rather play. I'm not going to go overboard. There's certain tonal
Oh,
things
you're
and
past that.
yeah, there's certain
The
things
gauge has
tonally,
gone back round and it's gone back to zero.
but there's certain things like from a tonal level and just the amount of gore and the amount of absurdity and the amount and the some of the art design where I'm like, dude, this is one of my favorite action games ever. So I'm gonna leave it in the A tier. Slippery A, but I'm gonna leave it there.
But does this? So I'm curious. Then does this make you even more amped for Ninja Gaiden 4? Because that means you'll probably get that theoretically that polish and everything you just said. Theoretically, you'd get that in the next one, then, right? Potentially.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Because I actually ended up reading the Xbox Wired post where
Mhm.
Team Ninja was talking about they put out we released Ninja Gaiden 2 specifically, obviously to clean up because there was some rumbling about well the version that they remastered and the Sigma 2 wasn't as great as the original yada 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 all that. But then it was also a paragraph talking about like we thought this was the perfect game to lead people in to Ninja Gaiden 4. So it's like if we're gonna get something on par with this, something of that quality, take my cash. Take it now. Take it. Hopping back into the ranking, here we go with Loon. Like a Dragon Guided the man who erased his name. It's almost as if the fog has not cleared from between these ears.
It's
Loon,
okay. I'll save you.
thank you.
Um,
Take it away, please.
so this was the Yakuza game that I think it released in between 7 and Infinite Wealth, right?
Yep. Yep.
I believe because both of them they've gone down the turn-based route and this went back to the traditional combat.
Yep.
And oh, I don't know, man. That turn-based combat they've cracked the code. I think I'm a lot more interested in them telling me a Yakuza game in that vein now, and maybe saving the normal kind of traditional Yakuza combat for maybe like 1 in 5 releases, or maybe I would even just be down because you're so invested in like the Judgment series, right?
I know where you're going. You're going to axe my
Just
judgment.
just
Oh, keep
no
on
no no no
axing
no. They
everything.
can keep making Judgment games and just maybe use the combat in that way, and
Yeah.
then just keep riding this turn-based combat into the sunset because it's so damn good.
Yeah.
But there were a couple of things that they added. It's kind of hard to very, very mild spoilers. He finds himself in a certain particular situation which allows him to get like it's almost like he's like an FBI agent almost in this game kind of thing. So you have like this wrist grapple thing that you can use to like tie people up. And it's just the creative combat things that they decide to do is just really weird. You have like an earpiece thing and you're able to call in like bee drones kind of thing to like
Mm.
harass people. And it's just like, okay, I see where this is going. This is interesting. But I don't know, it didn't feel like it like fully clicked either. There was no like impactfulness like you would like the thing that you get the most enjoyment out of is picking up like a bike and crushing it through someone's head in a Yakuza game. So these things felt like they lacked impact from like a gameplay perspective,
Mhm.
and the story felt badly paced.
Hmm.
it's taking place in between, literally where the game in between them releases. It is taking place also in the timeline in between them releases, and I don't know. I think they need to, because I had this when I was talking about Infinite Wealth before I played this as well. You need to. I love Kiryu, but you need to just move on from him. Like, just unshackle, man. I love the guy. He's got an incredible arc. But you followed him from like his 20 years. He was 20 years old in like Yakuza 0 all the way up to like he's almost 50. I think he is 50.
Oh my gosh.
In this game. He's almost 60.
Wow.
Like, he's done everything he can. I know he's a badass, but just like you don't need, you can just be fine to move on, man. It's cool. Close the book on his chapter. And this is probably other than some of them in the middle series, like I don't really gel with like Yakuza 3 gameplay. All the stories in the games are good, but this is
let
see.
Let me ask. Okay, I want to ask you a question.
Go ahead.
About, as someone that doesn't know anything about these games or the series, what does this one do specifically to differentiate itself from any other? I know there's the turn-based and there's some that aren't, but like, what does this game do to kind of set itself apart from maybe any of the other like a Dragon / Yakuza games? As an outsider, I just don't know, so I'm curious of that, because they all look the same and sound the same to me, except for like the combat.
Because
so what makes this different?
That's the thing. That's the kind of thing that they get away with. Their core loop is so strong that they've never really, like, they do minor tweaking adjustments, and that's what I mean. That like me pointing out that he had that grapple thing, that's the kind of thing that they will add.
Right. Well, can I ask you this?
Everything else is usually the same. Go ahead.
Yeah, gotcha.
Do you think you're at a point of just fatigue with the franchise in that sense of the more action driven experience, because it's a little bit more fresh with the turn based, and you played through 9 straight action oriented Yakuza games?
That's a good question.
No, it's more so the case of I'm done with Kiryu.
Okay.
More than anything, like, you can keep making games, because that's what I was saying. Like, Judgment isn't my thing. I just couldn't click with it. But I'd be happy with them like continuing either the Judgment series
or a new character,
or just focusing on like a new character. If you want to have like, because that's the whole point, is that Ichiban is turn-based, because in his mind he's playing a Dragon Quest game every single time he fucking walks out the door. That's his whole.
Wait, really?
That is the whole premise of Yakuza 7, is that he's homeless. And he's just so full of positivity because he meets this other homeless guy, and he's like, I just want to be the hero, just like them Dragon Quest games. And so that, like, every time he gets into combat and you see these like wacky transformations, that's not them in the real world, like dressing up as a wizard. That's him envisioning it in his mind that person's a wizard so he can kick their ass.
Really?
Yeah.
I never knew that. I was always like, this doesn't make any sense. Not that it has to, it's a game, but like, that's so great. How awesome is that? That's so cool.
Yep. And it's just like, I love him. That's why I love him. He's just such a lovable guy.
So let me ask you this, Lynn. Ishin, have you played that one?
The samurai one.
Yeah, the orangish yellow cover.
I played about 5 hours of it and I enjoyed it.
Okay.
But it was an original. It originally released on the PS3, I believe. So it kind of has that DNA of like a little bit of roughness with it.
So I get these two confused. The Man Who Erased His Name and Ishin, because they came out close to one another, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard a story about one of these games, and I don't want to get into any spoilers. I'll just ask you this. Is the story conclusion really impactful for The Man Who Erased His Name? Because I heard one story that made me tear up, and I never even played the game. I don't know. I'll say involving... I don't want to say anything. I'm just gonna. I'll leave.
It's you can't leave me like that. There's so many endings.
So it's about it has something to do with like overseeing, like being kind of a fatherly figure. I'll just say that. Is there anything in that?
Oh, that's not ever these. That's Yakuza 6.
Oh, is that Yakuza 6?
Yakuza 6 is. And that's why it hurt me so much when they brought him back. You concluded his story so perfectly. Like, there's no reason to... Like, You literally wrote the perfect conclusion and you shut the book, you put tape around it, and it's done. And then they drug him back out of it, and I was like, are you kidding me?
Are you saying Kiryu? You mean they closed up his story?
Wrapped his story up they couldn't have wrote it better.
Wow.
Well, and that's the thing that's a bummer too, where it's like if you're not creating new characters, you don't really have new jumping off points. So that was the thing why I jumped into Judgment. New character, new, it's same kind of world, but new character that I can jump into, new lore that I can experience and not have any of the previous baggage. If you were to just go straight into, what's the new dude?
Ichiban.
If you went straight into his story like you did with Yagami for Judgment, and you didn't have that previous baggage, it's like you could potentially open yourself up to a whole new pool of players. It's like, I don't know, it feels like they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot by trying to stick so close to their characters.
They are, because Ichiban has his story, and in both games Kiryu comes in at some point and kind of steals the light. Because if you're somebody who's a fan of the series, you're like, ooh, it's him again. And it's kind of like, They can't do it because of the way they've wrote the story in Infinite Wealth. He will return again, and that's what's annoying me, knowing that is going to happen. But they need to just wrap that up. Whatever that next game ends up being with Ichiban, close the book on Kiryu. Never open that book again. You shouldn't have done it in the first place. But yeah, and that's kind of because after playing Infinite Wealth and coming back to this, it kind of was like, oh, you gave him that story as well. Kind of like you're scraping the bottom of this barrel.
Okay, C tier. I was about to say it sounds like sounds like you might be leaning towards a lower grade than a C. But I mean, I get what you're saying. At the end of the day, it's like a polished, well-made experience. It would feel weird to put it in the D tier.
The combat is incredible. It's the usual wackiness crap that they've got going on in them games is always there. But it's just the fact that you just have an obsession with him, and it needs to stop. GG.
Wow. Okay.
All right, Jeffrey, I'm actually really curious to hear you talk about Quidditch, because I played a good bit of this as well.
Well, and we also talked about it last year when it came out, and because I fell off it quickly, which is surprising. So Harry Potter Quidditch Champions came out, I think August-ish, maybe September 2024. I mean, I'm a huge Harry Potter fan. I mean, I got the fancy books. I got my Hogwarts Legacy stuff. I've bought Hogwarts Legacy 3 times because I'm a psychopath. And my wife and I got back from Scotland in December. We had a trip there. So we did a lot of Harry Potter stuff there. So that's all leading into Harry Potter Quidditch Champions. So I played the game. I was very excited for it when it came out because I like Harry Potter Quidditch World Cup. Is that what it's called? I forgot. Anyway, the original one. But I don't know. It was so weird. Everything I love Harry Potter, I jumped into Quidditch last year, and the mechanics of the game is so good. It feels and flows so well. They're 7-minute matches. Obviously, you can wrap that up quicker if you catch the snitch or if you get enough points or whatever. But it's such quick, fast-paced fantasy sports gameplay, and it's so polished, and they nailed it. But I fell off it after an hour or two just because I was like, well, this is cool. But there's not a lot to do. Even the story mode is kind of just rote. It's just you go through the different, cups. You play Durmstrang, you play against Boban, and you play against Ivory or however you say it. And then that's it. You just kind of wrap it up. So I was like, well, I don't know what else to do. I'm just going to get kind of bored. But I got back from this trip. I was on a Harry Potter high. I was like, I'm going to jump back into this game. They had some Christmas content. I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to dive back in. I love this game. I fell in love with it. I've put an additional, I think, 10 hours into it. I went through all the story stuff. I'm trying to unlock more of the characters, and just when I have 20 minutes of time and I just want to dive into something quickly, I'll just play a couple matches. It has, the one weird thing is that this game has a lot of those live service elements, but it's not a live service game at all. It's everything you get is just in the game, but it has those elements. So it feels like a weird polarity where it's just a normal game with these live service elements, but without the live service crap. But it doesn't feel like it knows what it wants to be. So I'm going to put Harry Potter Quidditch Champions in B because the actual gameplay, the way they nailed the Quidditch is fun. Like, it's just, to your point, Loon, about fun factor, it's just fun. Like, I don't care if I get anything else or unlock anything else. I just like playing the matches and being in the Harry Potter world. That being said, this still would have made more sense in Hogwarts Legacy. It still would have made more sense not as a standalone release, and it would have made more sense, or if they just did it in the next, whatever they make, Hogwarts Legacy 2 or whatever.
Yeah.
But the mechanics here are so well done. The team, I think it's like Unbound or Unbroken Games, did a really phenomenal job with just how you play the game of Quidditch, even if it's not accurate to the movies or the books, because it's very much not. But really good, really polished. There's just not much to do beyond just a few matches here and there. So sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I interrupted you. You hit it on the head with the idea of like the 20-minute game. It's the perfect 20-minute game because, like you said, 7 minutes or so for a match. You finish 2 matches in 20 minutes. You got 6 minutes to kill. Like it's one of those games you can play on a kind of strict schedule and actually feel like you're making progress. I do think you got to put this in Hogwarts too. It doesn't seem like this really moved the needle as its own standalone thing. And in Hogwarts 2, bro, imagine putting this team, like have Avalanche just focus specifically on the real game. Have this team created as like a side piece and, kind of evolve it into this bigger thing potentially. But like imagine and I hate to go into business mode here, but imagine the monetary aspects of it, where you can have this like evolving thing with shops where you can go in and buy different clothing or buy different artifacts for your character to wear when they're out playing Quidditch. There's just a lot of juice in that squeeze, I feel. And it doesn't feel like because you would be so much more invested if it was your Hogwarts created character walking up to the damn Quidditch field, flying over there and, engaging in a match and actually seeing other people's real created character that they, made. And you can create your character in here as well, but it's not that same level of investment. You have a 20-hour built-in story with Hogwarts, and then you love that damn character, and now it's like, okay, time to go engage in some side stuff. Quidditch would be the perfect side thing to do in that world.
But they did, that's 100% true. But I do want to emphasize again, like they nailed the mechanics. It's not accurate to the books or the movies. Like it's just the way, like in that, it's like if you get the snitch, it's 150 points, and then you win the game. Here, it's like you only play till 100 points. If you get the snitch, it's 30 points. Like they don't want the games to be so unbalanced in that way, especially online. So they had to tweak it. You only have 6 players instead of the 7, like you have 1 beater instead of 2. Like those are all little things, but lore hounds like would obviously be upset by that. But the actual mechanics, it's so good and fast and polished. Like I don't enjoy sports games, like I enjoy fantasy sports games, but this just makes me want to actually play sports games because I'm like, I can see the need to just jump in, play a match of something, whatever it is, and dive out. And the fan service is really good too with the characters, and you can like have your created characters, but then you can have Hermione as one of the characters, even though she doesn't play Quidditch. Like it's just such a cool mix of things. But yeah, Brandon, you're right. It should be it hopefully will be added to a sequel, because this just doesn't seem like it's going to last for long, except for us diehards that want to play a few matches here and there. So
right. And with the bones being so good, it's like, hell yeah, dude, you got a great foundation to place into Hog 2.
I think they knew that they had good bones with it. But the thing is that, like you said, the diehard fans, because the reason I never checked this out is because in my mind, I'm looking at it through a logical mindset. It's like, I don't see a world where you would translate Quidditch 1-to-1 from its source into a game, because it just wouldn't work. It's an extremely unbalanced sport in reality. And that's why they've changed these things. So there's probably a ton of people like me that held off of it because it's just like, well, you're just not going to be able to do it. So, like you said, why the hell was this not in Hogwarts Legacy? Because you've done the reverse thing. You've screwed yourself by doing that. If you put this in Hogwarts Legacy and then it blew up in popularity, you'd end up in the same vein of like Gwent is.
Right.
You add a mini game into a game, and then people are like, holy crap, this is like really good. And then you're able to pull that mini game out and make it its own thing. They've done the reverse thing here, and it's probably hurt it big time. That's a good point. Because they can add this into Hogwarts Legacy 2, but it's kind of hurt the development of this game as well. Hopefully they don't end up, being like, well, no one cares about Quidditch, so we're not going to put it in Hogwarts Legacy 2 now because it didn't sell very well.
But I think that's a good point. It's almost indicative of, because their Christmas season extended longer than it was supposed to. And like they pushed out their like whatever season pass thing. And like, again, I think they also, by putting it in the next game, they need to get rid of any of those live service things, even though there's no extra money to spend. It's all in game. I'm going to stress that. But like, it just feels out of place in a game like this. And if they did it in a sequel, it would just, like you guys said, would make a lot more sense. But you're right, Loon, from that point, business side, people are going to be like, well, it didn't do well. We shouldn't put it in the next game, which is a shame because that would be the perfect place for it, especially when they nail the actual mechanics. But anyway. Yeah.
All right.
Cool. 3
Hogwarts
left.
2. We shall see at Quidditch. I'm almost positive that'll be there in Hogwarts 2. Robo Dunk, speaking of over the
Fantasy
top
sports.
Yeah. Over the top sports games, we got 2 back to back here. Robo Dunk released. This is once again, if I wouldn't have been searching the PSN and sorting from new game and doing my whole dabbling that I've been doing in 2025 with some pretty awful games so far. But Robo Dunk is not one of those. I had no idea this was coming to console. It's a pretty much NBA Jam, but you play as robots. And it's like a system where you hold down X and there's certain meters that you have to get to. If you get to the 4th meter, you'll jump up in the air and do like this spectacular dunk and get 4 points if you can land it. But the defenders are also able to leap in the air and kind of tackle you. It is really, really fun. I finished the endless mode. I finished the tournament mode. Probably put 6-7 hours into it. It is a roguelike, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you feel about that. Not my thing, but I do understand. I pretty much give indie developers a pass for roguelikes because it's like, dude, if this wasn't a roguelike, it'd be a 45-minute game. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. I get the need to do this and ramp up the difficulty and then get the unlocks and then go back and progress. And I get it. And those systems are in place. You're unlocking new dunkers. You're unlocking new attribute points and abilities to give to those dunkers. You're leveling up. It's cool to me that this is a game that becomes so much more like when you first start, you're like, oh, damn, okay, I'm scoring a good bit. I got, I start scoring 16 points. And then a few games later, I'm scoring 24, 25 points. But then the more you play it, you're scoring like 7 points and 9 points. And it's like, you would think I'd just keep on scoring more and more. But the more the game goes on, you start understanding that defense is everything. Offense is like whatever. Get a point where you can get a point. And that's another big thing where the meter fills up to 4 slots. And you start in your mind, you have this mindset early on that I got to get 4 or 3 on every single dunk. If I'm not getting 4 or 3 points, there's no point in doing it. By the end, you go and you grab your double jump ability. You just jump up in the air. You don't hold down nothing. You're trying to get 1 point. If you can get 1 point on the board, you are happy. Because it gets challenging as hell later on. But you're also getting better and you're understanding defensive strategic, moves you can pull off and tactics you can employ. And so you're preventing them from scoring. They're preventing you from scoring. So there's a stalemate. So it's like, just grab those 1 points when you can get them. Of course, if you got a wide open fast break and you can get 3 or 4, always get that. But there will be times where you just got that slight window. It's like jump in the air, click double jump real quick, tap that X, drop the ball. It's like, okay, cool. I got something on the board. That's better than going a full round with nothing. So, yeah, man, it's a really, really fun game. I am much more partial to like an NBA Street style. This is more NBA Jam style. There's no jump shooting. There's no real like technical basketball going on whatsoever. And I like the technical aspect of basketball. I like running plays. I like setting screens. I like doing all those things that you have to do in a real basketball game to win. None of that's there in Robo Dunk. So that would drop it a little bit for me, but it's easily a B tier game.
Wow, that's awesome. How does and you kind of touched on it, but how does the roguelite structure work in like a quote unquote sports game? Like I know you kind of mentioned it, but I can't follow how that would work in a gameplay loop like this. So how does that work with progression and stuff then?
So the tournament mode, you go into it and there's I think 17 rounds. And so if you get to like 14, round 14 and you lose, you go all the way back to the beginning. So you start from one, go back to two, three. Yeah, so it's real simple. You just they have a certain I think it might be 20, 17 to 20, something like that, different stages that you have to do. And if you're at 19 out of 20, so sorry, go back to the
Wow.
beginning if you end up losing. It can be a bummer. But I do think some of your like your abilities don't stay equipped, but I do think some of your leveling stays equipped to the
Mm.
robots that you unlock, the robot dunkers that you unlock. Um, and so like you will have because I remember having Blasto and Tenchi were the two robots that I used, and they were level one at first, but then the more I played, they would be leveled a little bit higher. And I'm assuming it kept some of my leveling, some of that progress carried over. I don't know. But yeah, I think some things carry over, but not your actual like if you unlock double jump and apply that to a robot dunker, you're not gonna have that your next run. You're gonna have to re-unlock that and everything. So yeah.
Interesting. Is there any multiplayer at all, like local or anything? Or
Yep.
so there are options for that? Because this seems like it could be a fun, even like if you got to play with someone on the couch or something, right? Like just a few matches here and there, maybe.
Yeah, I could imagine this would be a blast. Local multiplayer. I haven't checked it out yet. I don't think there's any online integration. I don't believe. I could be wrong about that. But yeah,
Nice.
yeah, I could see it being a really fun local co-op game or local competitive game.
That sounds
You
cool.
compared it to NBA Jam, right?
Yeah, very similar.
How that was quite a few years ago. I think that released, right? Many years now.
Yeah, well, it came out in the 80s in the arcades back in the day, but
So something a little bit more like recent. How's it compete against like Pyre? Was it from Supergiant?
right. Yeah, I mean, so here's the thing. It would be really cool to see a story or something like that. And you do have like little still images with text and it kind of gives you a little bit of a background for the world, but it's nothing that's all that impactful to your experience. You're not getting cutscenes or any real tangible lore that you're going to hang on to and think about. Whereas with Pyre, I'll think about those story moments forever. And so it doesn't do that. In terms of gameplay, it's actually kind of similar.
Yeah, that's
And-
what I was searching for.
yeah,
I wouldn't
and-
have expected it to hit like on the same levels of the story, but like how comparable was like the gameplay?
It's actually pretty similar because with Pirates, the whole system of it's really similar actually. Where the how does it work in Pyre? I mean, I know it's a level-based system as well, where you get more points depending on the different variation of like dunks and different slams and different ways that you drop the orb into the portal. And it's pretty much the same thing here in Robo Dunk, but it's super simple. You hold down X for as long as you can, and that'll get you up to four. And if you get knocked down in the process, if you get tackled in the process of doing that, there goes the ball. They're off on transition, trying to fast break, get a bucket of their own. It doesn't really have that Pyre. I think one of the cool things about Pyre was kind of the roaming aspect of it, where you're going from arena to arena, stadium to stadium, and you're kind of building up your band, your group throughout this entire thing. And there's no like in Robo Dunk, you can't really have that. You can have favorites, but when you lose, you're restarting all the way back over. So there, you don't quite get that attachment and get you're not going to get like a full understanding of play styles in the way that you do with Pyre. And there's not like well, they do have different attacks that you can perform on defense. So like certain people will shoot rockets. You press R2 and shoot a rocket at the opponent while they're dribbling the ball. The rocket will hit them. You can go and grab the ball and, you can do like backflip kicks and shit. You got a dude who can do backflip kicks. You can apply fast feet to people. They'll run super fast. And there's a lot of cool stuff like that. But it's not on the level of Pyre. But I think that's mainly from a narrative standpoint. Pyre is just such a good narrative experience.
Nice. That's cool, man. It sounds like a cool little hidden gem that you wouldn't have known about otherwise unless you were exploring. So yeah.
Well, this is one it's been on my radar. I've been wanting to play it so bad, but it was only on PC.
Okay.
I would have never known about the console release though. I did not see this anywhere other than just scrolling through new releases. So
Nice.
shout out to Robo Dunk. If you are a fan of NBA Jam and are looking for something in that vein, Robo Dunk has you covered.
Nice.
Loon, it is time, my friend, to talk about the Elysium that is disco.
So I guess before I spiral and spiral like the main character does with his mental instability, how tight-lipped would you like me to be, Jeffrey? Or how uncuffed can I be about talking about the aspects of the game?
You talk about whatever you want. Yeah. So Brandon, you've played it, right? I've played zero, but I was telling Loon behind the scenes that I didn't want to ruin his fun, but like I really want to try this, but I'm really scared because to me it comes across as very impenetrable, even though I know it's supposed to be incredible. Like I don't, as a newcomer, it looks like I'd be so overwhelmed. So you just talk about whatever you want to talk about and have fun with it. I want you to be you and have fun.
Okay.
And I don't care because it's probably too smart of a game for me.
No, whoa. Loon, before you jump in, I will say, no, God, no, that's not true. You could play this thing easily and get through. There's no, like,
Really?
yeah, absolutely. Okay. There's nothing to this experience whatsoever in terms of getting through it.
Well, I just mean that's good to know. I just mean from an outsider's perspective, when I watch trailers and videos of it with all of the, I don't want to say anything you're going to say, Loon, but when I look at it from an outsider perspective, it just looks impenetrable. Like it looks like a game where I'd be like so lost in the weeds of what to do. That's kind of what I mean. So that's why I'm excited to hear what Loon has to say about it, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, because I can see where you're talking. If like me having played it, and before I played it, you see like trailers and stuff, and you think, "Oh, that's a lot of stuff going on, and that's a lot of you being bombarded with things." I think the pacing does it well enough where it lays it out for you in a digestible manner, because you literally start from nothing. You wake up and you have no understanding, basically, other than your ability to breathe. Like you wake up from an extreme hangover to the point where you forget your name. You don't even realize you're a police officer meant to be investigating like a murder that's taking place in the residence that you're staying at. You've completely trashed the room. And the way the game tackles laying that out to you is you have an inner voice inside of your head that constantly battles you throughout the game. So you wake up and it's narrating, like trying to make you open your eyes and stuff like that. And it's constantly belittling and berating you at every single turn. And every time that something could go wrong, it's kind of nudging you to be like, go be a dirty alcoholic again, you failure little slob guy. And it constantly pushes that to you, and it constantly makes you feel uncomfortable because it's such a battle to redeem yourself. Because it's so easy. It's so easy to just slip back into that and just be a degenerate. But the opening like hour of that game it's unlike anything else. Because you wake up and you have no understanding of anything. So you're going around questioning people, and you go, for instance, you go down to the bartender and he's like, "Oh, it's you." And you're like, "I don't know who you are, my friend. What do you mean? Oh, it's me." He's like, "Well, you're the guy that owes me like $300 for all the time that you've been staying. You've smashed my window."
No, that was Brandon.
There's a corpse hanging out in my back garden that you've left there for 6 days that you haven't taken down. And you're like, "Oh, okay." And I really wish I caught a clip of this.
Bro.
And it wouldn't let me save it on Xbox. But he asks you for the money, and you can turn around and go, "I'll pay you back." Or there's these skill check things. And the beauty of the game is that it doesn't feel bad when you fail a skill check, because that's part of it. It's not like you fail it and then it's just like, oh, you can't convince him and he just gets angry at you. In this specific moment, he asks you for the money and you can perform like a sleight of hand check, basically try and slip out unnoticed. And I failed it. And my guy just runs towards the exit, Max Payne dives, double flip fingers off the guy, and slams into this woman in a wheelchair.
Oh no. Oh no.
And that's the kind of level of comedy that the game it's so serious in so many of its aspects, and then every now and then it loosens its cuff because even like I don't know why it fixates on this manager. You just make him miserable. Because another thing is like when he's asking you for the money, you can probe further and further and be like, "So what is money?" He's like, "What the hell do you mean? What is money?" And then he starts breaking that down, and then he's like, "You owe me 300," and then you reach into your pocket and you're like, "Free." And you give it to him, and he's like, that's 3 cents, you idiot. You need so much more than that. And he's like breaking down the concept of money and like how that works.
That's hilarious.
Dude, I don't mean to cut you off, but like just staying with that dark humor, the fighting the kid. That's the craziest shit ever.
So the setting of the game as well, like moving further onto it, is like it's a post-war like archipelago. So it's kind of like it has a lot of like French themes in its way of like tackling stuff and presenting the history. So you're on a
French?
place that French.
Like French, like bonjour, welcome to hell.
Yeah.
Callback.
And so it's so run down the area that you're staying in, and they just have no concept of like how to be civilized. So there's this corpse hanging out in the back of this like cafe that you're staying at, and there's this little kid called Kuno, and he's just pelting this corpse with rocks.
Oh no.
Pelting this corpse with rocks, and he's been doing it every single day for an entire week. And you can go out there and you talk to him, and he is just the most vile child ever. But as we said, the game is entirely based off of skill checks. And it has extremely dark humor.
Oh no.
So he mouths off to you, and you can just be like, I'm gonna smack the shit out of you, kid. And you just right hook him right in the jaw, and you knock him down. And funnily enough, that's the only way for you to gain respect of him. Like he will gain respect for you, and he's like, "Oh my god, I need to listen to you," because that's the kind of dynamic that he's been like living in. He's lived in this bubble of people. It's a dog eat dog world, and that's the only way for him to for you to get through to that. Otherwise, he just constantly sits there and berates you and makes your life a living hell.
And I will say, like, it's
wow.
I understand that's dark, but that's kind of real. Like there are how I grew up, dude, it really was a sense of like, I'm going to talk a bunch of shit to this adult. And then if he punches me in the head, okay, I'm not talking shit to the adult anymore. Like there is kind of, when you're a scoundrel, when you're a ruffian, when you're like, you don't really have the clearest mindset, and there will be situations that you encounter like that. And of course, I'm not saying like me as an adult, I'm not going to hit a kid. But I do know that myself included, I guilty as charged, absolutely have pushed adults to the finest breaking point, just random ass adults. And so that's a real scenario. And he pushes and prods nonstop.
Yep.
Wow.
And I
because what
shit out of
spurs that what I left
Wow.
out is what spurs that is that they scream, because you're questioning him, you're a police officer. So what I should have also said is when you're about to leave the building, it gives you your permanent companion for the game, who's called Kim Itsuragi. And so you are a complete clueless. And he is just the most patient man in the entire universe. And he accepts you for who you are. And that's the beauty of it, because the game is completely about you screwing up constantly.
Yeah. So
having this counterweight to basically shackle you in reality, it allows you to build off of that. Because if you just let this character loose, there's no way your story would conclude in a meaningful way, because you wouldn't be able to realistically weave in like, dude, get yourself back on track, do this, do that, and stuff. So when you go out there and question Kuno for the first time, he brushes you off because he has a partner that stands behind a fence egging him on constantly to be a little degenerate. And as you're like, look, man, I'm a police officer. Can you just ask my questions? And then you like go to reach out to him, and they go, "Oh my god, the pig! He's gonna rape Kuno! Scream rape!" And that's why you have to punch him, because they keep screaming, and you're like, "Shut up!"
Holy crap! Wow, yeah, that's
The
dark.
kind of like dark thing, and that's the basis for like the entirety of the game. Is that this town is basically stuck in like a time frame of like the war ended, but they've never been able to rebuild.
Right.
So it is just a complete dive. There's no police. You technically are a police officer, but you have very limited authority because a lot of the citizens don't actually recognize your authority. You have like the dock workers, which are basically the biggest powerhouse ever that they have over there, that have like control over people's lives. And then there's you, and then the standard citizens.
And you can end up like actually siding with the evil corporation and shit. Just be like, fuck these people and their rights.
Wow.
Yep.
Man.
Because the entire
Crazy.
like achievement list is based off of like what you choose as like skill checks and stuff, and how you develop as a character. Because like for instance, I was trying to like redeem him, so I had to kind of like stay in the middle. Like I'm not playing sides.
Right.
And like as an example, one of the achievements you get is the most boring as fuck cop.
Yeah.
Because you're just not pushing for them answers and stuff.
Right.
And you think that like, how would you be able to like make this into a compelling story? But it just spirals and becomes crazy because it's so linked in like the psyche of the human mind and stuff. Because every single time that you think that you've come to the end of your investigation and like, all right, I've found that definitive, right, that's chased down, that has to be the answer.
Right.
There's always something else that you couldn't conceivably think about in that time. And it's just perfectly written. Because I'm not going to spoil the ending, but the ending is just, excuse, what? Like, that's what you went with? And it's the kind of thing where there's going to be a 50-50 split divide of people like, man, that's lame. Like, really anticlimactic and like, what the hell was that? And then there's going to be the other 50% where it's me, where it's like, this is like the most uniquely written story I've ever like experienced in my life. This is incredible.
Wow.
I think. Go ahead.
Go on. No, you can.
I was just gonna say, I think it's maybe the best writing ever in a game. Like it's up there.
Wow.
No doubt about it.
Oh,
I mean, I do think that there's like a little bit of overblown nature to the way people talk about Disco Elysium in some regard, where it's like, it is essentially like a Telltale game, but you can explore a little bit. Like it, but then it's like imagine a Telltale game with the best writing ever. So it's like, well, that's that makes it not a Telltale game at that point. You know what I mean? But like structurally, mechanically, the game isn't doing anything that's like. That's what I was saying early on, where you were like, it feels impenetrable. If you can play a Telltale game, you can play this.
Well, if maybe you both answered the question already, but like I think my biggest. First of all, I should say you guys both sold me on this. Yeah, that sounds fine. I'm going to go start downloading it. I think it's on PlayStation Plus. This sounds really cool as an experience. But my question, I guess the main one is, do you always, because Brandon, you and I have talked about this. I despise not knowing what to do next in a game. I can't. If a game's like, you have to just figure out what to do next, I'm out. I'm sorry. I'm out. I'm not going to be bothered with not knowing what to do next. That will grate me to an end. And I'm not going to go to a walkthrough unless I adore the game. Do you always know what to do next? Like, does the game guide you to what to do next? Or are you going to be like, well, I don't know what to do? Because I'm out if that's the case. I hate that. I despise it.
You have a journal and you can like actively go and trigger the thing you want to do. And there's like even a fast travel map where it's like, okay, I need to go to this dock to talk to X character. And then it'll pretty much tell you exactly where you need to go in the journal. So as long as you look at the journal and then look back at the map, and you can fast travel and kind of, you'll remember where people are and where to go as soon as you, because it's such a small, the game is itty bitty in terms of
it is like the cafe and like 2 roads.
Yeah.
It's like the opening like 8 hours of that game.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then they open up, there's a bridge basically that opens up because it can span, I think the game can, it's because it's got a day-night cycle kind of thing.
Okay.
And it's a constantly progressing time Like, it goes on when you're in conversation. That's the beauty of it. When you're walking around and exploring, time doesn't move at all.
Mm.
So whenever you're talking to people, it will, like, while you're in the middle of like a conversation, it will jump forward like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and stuff like that.
Okay.
So you do have to do things, and there are time gated things. For instance, sometimes people won't be at areas, so they'll be like, "Oh, you have an interview that you need to do to somebody at 9 o'clock at night." So you do need to. There are things that you need to keep in your mind as a player, and it's not going to guide you towards them things. But I think the game will suck you in as long as you're willing to be sucked in. That's the kind of thing. Don't play this while talking to people, is what I'll say.
Oh,
Make
of
sure you're
course,
fully
yeah.
immersed with the game, and you're in there. Because then you'll remember things, you'll get invested. All of the beauty, tiny little intricate details that would just like fly by if you were like not paying 100% attention, it will reward you for that.
Interesting. Okay.
I will also say, like, the whole time thing, a lot of the missions, even if you fail something, that's a part of your story. So, like, if there's something that you just personally, you're like, yeah, I don't know, I don't want to align with you. I don't want to go and get this gun. I don't want to do X, Y, and Z. That's a part of your narrative. Like, they're going to let you fail things and still progress. There's no, like, block for progression. Well, there are.
There's technical, like, I'll say this. There's an even funnier thing. If you screw up, because you have like character templates when you start the game, because all your stuff is skill checks and stuff. If you fail every skill check in that opening room, you can die by turning on a light switch.
Right, and you can die and stuff, but you boot right
Hashtag
back
relatable.
up. You boot right
there
back
are-
up,
there
and it's
are
just like, okay, I'm going to
aspects
make
of that.
different decisions now.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the actual like narrative things, if you fail, like you said, if you don't meet somebody, it's not going to be like, oh, game over.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
the game will just continue on. It's just like, well, you just didn't go down that avenue.
Yeah.
See, that's good to hear from what both of you said, because again, this is more my naivete, but every time I watch things about this game, because I've watched enough videos about it, it always seemed like this is a game where I'm just going to get stuck. I'm not going to know where to go next. And the only thing I can compare it to, which I understand isn't a fair comparison, is like the Sherlock Holmes games or like the Sinking City. I want to like those games, but I just can't ever figure out where to go or what to do. And I know those games are meant to like, I know it's not the same type of game. I get it. But like in my mind, I always thought Disco Elysium was going to be this like heavy investigative game where you have to like remember every detail. You have to remember exactly where to go. And if you don't, you're screwed. Like that's what I thought it was, but it sounds like it's not that. It sounds like it is more like a Telltale game versus like a investigative per se game, I guess. I don't know.
The thing I'll add to that is that, like, people talk about Disco Elysium with the most pretentious, like, it is unbelievable when you hear, like, when I hear people talk about Disco Elysium versus the experience I had with it, they make it sound like it, like you said, they make it sound like you're going to have to jump through mental hurdles to like be able to comprehend what this thing is. And it's like, dude, if you've ever played a video game at all, you'll be able to get through this. It's not the, like, I've heard like the Dark Souls of your mind, or like the Dark Souls, and it's like, dude, why are y'all building games like this? It's a choice making game.
Maybe that's what it is then. Maybe it's all that narrative I've heard, just because everything you've just said is the stuff I've heard. So maybe that's what it is. And that made me put off from it versus what you guys are saying is completely different. I had no idea of these things. So
it's about 90% true that there are story aspects and themes where I think that's where they're drawing the conclusion with the Dark Souls stuff, is that a lot of Dark Souls storytelling is based off of how you perceive the world. They give you story nuggets in Dark Souls and like item descriptions, and you can kind of draw to your own conclusions what's going on and write your own like headcanon.
Right.
That's kind of where I would draw the similarities with, is that there's certain aspects in Disco Elysium where it's like, that's madness. That is genuine madness, what you've just like explained there and what you're going with the story.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no way. I don't see you or anybody, like, if you're going in and you actually give it a shot, you will finish the game. It's not complicated.
Okay.
Nobody will be able to not finish this game. There's not
Okay.
if anybody who plays video games at all will be able to finish Disco Elysium. It's
Nice.
that's the thing that like blows my mind hearing people talk about this game. I'm like, you're not in an elite class of human to enjoy Disco Elysium. Like I 1000% will give you. It is one of the most well-written games ever. But it's like,
It's like reading a book.
It's like reading a book, yeah.
Like everyone can get to the end of a book, and the same with Disco Elysium. Obviously, like, all you have to do is open, like you said, because you were saying, like, oh, you might get lost and stuff. Just open up the journal, and you can always ask Kim at any point as well.
Yeah.
Talk to him and be like, all right, what's next? And then he'll be like, well, we need to go interview this person and stuff like that.
Well, and that's the thing. They really want you to get through it because they know their story is really
Kim
good.
impression.
Beautiful accent.
They really want you to get through the story because the game is so good. The story is so good. They absolutely do not want you to hit some, point where it's like, I don't know what to do, because they know they got something there. They want you to see that shit. They built the hell out of that thing.
Awesome, man. You guys, yeah. I'm glad I got to hear this from both of you because I'm sold on it. I definitely want to play this. Then it was one of those I knew I would never probably play, but now thank you. So, well, where does it go for you then, Loon? I guess that's the big question. Where does it go? I mean, it seems like it would be obvious, but maybe it's not. So, where does it go for you? And interesting, where would it go for you too, Brandon? I'm curious for both of you, I guess, but
yeah, because you didn't replay it recently, but where would you end up putting it? Just out of curiosity.
I'd go. I mean, B or A, somewhere, probably leaning closer to B or closer to A.
Really? I thought you were going to say S. Okay.
S is tough for me. And I'll just say this: S is tough for me because, like I said, Disco Elysium is such a well-written thing, but you're not doing much of anything.
Not much gameplay.
Yeah, and it's like I wouldn't rank. I love The Wolf Among Us. I wouldn't put it in the S tier either. You know what I mean?
Good
like
point.
The Wolf Among Us is one of the most important games ever to me, but it's not like I wouldn't put it in the S tier for me personally.
Well, Loon, this is yours. So where are you putting it? D?
It's funny because what I'm like basing this off of as well is somebody asked me in the Discord recently, like what like the top 10 CRPGs. It didn't make the list in the top 10.
For you?
No.
You're saying for you it didn't make the top 10?
It didn't make the top 10 for me because
wow.
I don't view it as anything like anything else.
Okay.
This isn't an S tier for me. This is in a like, and I know that sounds like leaning into that pretentious. This is a completely one of a kind game.
Right.
There is nothing else I've ever booted up and experienced that is like this, that has made me care about stuff like that. So I have to put it in S tier because it's the highest thing. But if I could go to just a unique tier of its own, where it's just like, I wouldn't ever like put this in my top 10 games of all time because it's just one of them things where it is just, I'm never going to replay this as well, is what I should say.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
This is a thing of, I have a thing when I play story games like this, if they're that impactful, I don't want to see any other route ever. Because that's not my story. What I chose and what I did, all of them things, because they made that much impact and were that important to me. Me flipping that person off, because I could have easily reloaded a save. It was like, oh, I actually like that woman, and of course they're an inconvenience. No, man, that was my character arc. That was perfect. That is so good. You need to play it.
It would almost be easier to rank it amongst books, right? You know what I mean? Like it's not really easy to rank amongst games because it's not all that it's incredibly interactive in very weird ways. But we can hop off Disco Elysium. I feel like we could talk about that. Like we could do a full fucking essay about that shit.
You guys should, yeah. Well, here I am, just a peasant spending $20 on Matchbox driving ventures, and you elitist kings over there just playing Disco Elysium, a scum of the earth playing our crappy games. Jeez Louise. Get your crypt together.
Speaking of scum of the earth games, let's
How
talk
dare you.
about Super Mario.
What? Man, you are a good thing you don't have Nintendo fans because they would all leave immediately from that. Although to be fair, there are some bad ones, but yeah.
So
It feels go ahead.
no, I heard good things about this though. Is it on par with the other Super Mario Party game? I don't know anything about it, so
It's probably the best writing I've seen in the game. There's a lot of bodies that are hanging, you throw rocks at. It's pretty dark.
The thought-provoking nature of should I or should I not eat the mushroom?
Yeah, well, that's a good life lesson. But all right, yeah, I'm gonna keep this brief because I feel like trying to follow up after that heady conversation feels like I feel like a court jester now. But Super Mario Party Jamboree is really good. It's a good Mario Party game. I am throwing it immediately in A. Again, these are. It's a good. If I've been playing Mario Party games since the N64. I've played all of them except for the Wii U one. There's definitely been some huge misses without a doubt. But this is great. They really learned a lot of lessons from the Switch Mario parties, the good and the bad. It's just well-rounded. It's a well-rounded experience. It's very polished. It has a lot of great game boards. It has a variety of game boards, which is the biggest part. They're not tiny little game boards like in Super Mario Party. You always have something to do. And they have a nice mix of like callbacks to like there's a couple older maps remade. They have older mini games that come back. Then they have a whole bunch of new ones. And I've been playing through this with my wife. You know, again, we play these games together and we just have a blast. And we've played through all these games together. It's just fun. Again, it's like your equivalent of junk food, right? It's just fun video game times. We sit down for an hour and a half. We just play some mini games. We compete with each other. We yell at each other. You know, we talk about divorce and then we can move on. And then I'm just kidding. Sorry, that guy told you it was dark. See, you thought Disco Elysium was dark. But yeah, it's a fun Mario Party game. So the new things for this is they added some new boards. They added new mini games. They have a whole single player component, which is really fun where you like get to know characters. You help build up the boards yourself and add different spots. It's like a really cool single player. They added like a buddy system where you can pick up like a buddy in one of the maps and you can get double stars, you can get double coins. And there's just a lot of cool additions, a lot of longevity. It's really polished. It's just fun. Again, it's fun Mario Party. It's one of the best ones out there. So it's a no-brainer as far as an A tier when it comes to Mario Party. So yeah, that's what it is. I enjoy it. Very heady. It's much better than Disco Elysium, obviously. So
I feel like these games are kind of the opposite of junk food games in a way. Like I really kind of think most co-op games are the opposite of junk food games because I feel like they're so substantive on like not to sound once again, this is going to sound so corny, but like it is like so substantive on a personal level where it's like that's the experience that you're getting where you're filling your spirit with the interaction with the people that you love and like that's kind of one of the most important things about video games, you know what I mean? Like I think junk food games is more like, you know, shit that I play like what's something I played that's junk food? Dynasty Warriors would be a good junk food game for me, where it's like I'm not really gaining anything from Dynasty Warriors at all.
The poor fans of Dynasty Warriors can't.
Yeah, people are going to hate you for saying all that. They're so ravenous. But, yeah.
I mean, I think they would agree. I would say like a lot of the Yakuzas can be kind of junk foodish game. But I like the games. I like the games. I Lost Judgment was my game of the year in 2021. I'd say it's somewhat of a junk food game.
And no, you know, you bring a good point. I don't mean junk food in a disparaging way. I just meant it in the sense where, like, let's do it in contrast to Disco Elysium. You guys both made it very clear that's a game you want to be invested in. You don't want to be interrupted. You want to pay attention, right? Whereas what I mean by junk food, not in a disparaging way, is that we can sit down together on the couch for an hour, have some tea, have some coffee, have a drink. We can play some mini games. We don't have to pay attention. We can have fun. We can just hang out. Like I guess I mean it in that way where like, if you just want to unwind from the day together with a friend, a loved one, whatever it is, enemies, probably too. So it's just a good game for that. And there's just a lot of, they really added a ton of content to keep you going. So it's well worth it for Mario Party fans. And if you were burned by other ones, this is a good one to jump into. It's really fun. So
nice. Yeah, I mean, junk food is probably like 70% of my daily consumption for actual food. So
that explains a lot.
Absolutely does.
Why you break so many windows, you punk.
Yeah, I'm an absolute ogre walking around just with piles of Taco Bell festering in my organs.
Okay, now we're getting weird.
I really want the Switch too. I really want the Switch too, because I do see games like this. I love party games. I was playing Ape Escape Academy recently.
Oh, nice.
Blast. Just dabbling with some Ape Escape Academy. So yeah, man, I hope the Switch 2 can sell me whenever it drops. But that is the ranking for this month, my good people. I hope y'all enjoyed this dive into our psyche of what is and what is not junk food. Loon, do you have any parting words for the people?
No, the next one's going to be a cracking one though.
Oh,
With
I'm scared.
Avowed. I think are we all going to be checking out? Maybe not together, obviously, but we're all checking out like Monster Hunter, right? We would be
I'm
diving
not.
into that.
That's you two. But yeah, Vowed for sure, not Monster Hunter. But you guys are do Monster Hunter, right? So yeah.
Well, next month we probably won't even be able to talk about Monster Hunter though, because that's the 28th. I think it releases on,
yeah.
and I wouldn't have time to get this thing
Capcom, you
edited.
suck.
It's like they screwed us over for our videos.
But at least we'll have a full month of diving into it potentially. We ain't got to talk about it. We have a full video talking about it, our February ranking that'll be coming up after this ranking. We recorded it beforehand, but I was like, we probably should have recorded the games played first and then
Yeah.
Anywho, so the February most anticipated games ranking that'll be dropping January 31st. This one will be dropping. We're recording it the 27th. I hope to get it uploaded by tomorrow. So hopefully it'll be up by the 28th. So
Cool.
yeah, that's the plan, man.
Well, that was a great ending. Let's finish this up. Good times, everyone. We enjoyed it.
Appreciate y'all, man. And we shall see you good people very, very soon. Goodbye.
Bye. Bye.